Hello, good afternoon from the East Coast. I'm Robert McNeely as we get ready for President Trump to address the Detroit Economic Club. There's a live shot there of the mall in a for the 47th Commander-in-Chief to take the swearing of that presidential oath under that Capitol Rotunda 40 years to the date where President Ronald Reagan did the exact same thing under the Rotunda due to that brisk January weather, becoming again the 40th president of the United States for that second term. But President Trump, as we know, like Mr. Grover Cleveland, a Democrat from Ohio, the only other person to serve two non-consecutive terms as president of the United States. And there's hope in the American economy. There is hope throughout the world as we're seeing sadness in Iran, as protesters taking to the streets, really going after what has happened under the mullahs and a tyrannical regime after the overthrow of the Shah in 1979. Inflation skyrocketing throughout that country, and it seems as if the inhabitants, the citizens of Iran, have had enough. And celebrations happening all the way in Los Angeles, California as well, with counter-protest and, ironically, someone using a U-Haul, as it seems, under investigation right now, being charged with the use of a deadly weapon and a van in that situation, whether it was by unintentional mistake or intentional. We'll let a court of law decide that. We are seeing unrest in that regard as the national dialogue continues to happen as a result of Minneapolis and the ICE raids and politicians who have completely different details and outlooks on what has or has not happened over the course of a very young new year. But let's break down, in the meantime, the big wins for American workers. It's the focus of today in Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City, where President Trump will be presenting to the Detroit Economic Club. American workers win big as inflation continues to remain low and wages surging, according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Yet another report confirms that President Trump has defeated the inflation crisis inherited from the Biden administration, while so-called experts continue to be proven wrong month after month. Now, President Trump's powerful tariffs and massive tax cuts for working families and sweeping deregulatory agenda has positioned our economy for a boom in 2026. Now, Americans are already seeing results. Workers' wages are rising rapidly, and trillions in investments are flowing into the country to create good-paying jobs, and economic growth is accelerating. Again, this according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Now, fresh economic data released just today reaffirms the inflation is firmly under control under President Trump and this administration. American workers see real wage gains in this economy. Here's what you need to know. The core inflation came in below economists' expectations. It's a more confident signal of cooling price growth after shutdown-related distortions, and a convincing sign that inflation is on a downward path, according to Bloomberg. Now, President Trump's ended President Biden's inflation crisis over the course of 4 years ago. Since President Trump took office, headline inflation has been running at 2.4%. It's much lower than the 3% annual rate inherited from the auto pen. And core inflation has been running at 2.4%, much lower than the 3.3 annual percent rate inherited from the last administration. Now, real wages are rising in America. Private sector weekly earnings are on track to rise 4% in President Trump's first full year in office, resoundingly beating inflation. In fact, private sector workers are on track to see a real wage gain of $1,100, gaining back some of the purchasing power they lost under Biden. Now, blue-collar workers are seeing real results. Overall, goods-producing workers have the backbone of the American economy, and they truly build up the American economy. They're on track to see their real earnings rise by $1,300 in President Trump's first full year in office. Mining and lodging workers are on track for an increase to $2,200. Construction workers on track for an extra $1,400, and manufacturing workers on track to gain $1,300. Now, cars have become more affordable under President Trump as well. The latest report showing vehicle price decline as President Trump's policies power automakers their best sales since 2019. And according to Bloomberg's Chris Anstey, despite many analysts anticipating a bump up in prices for the 2026 model year, automakers expected to do a lot more to pass along the tariff increases. That just hasn't happened. So this will be a big focal point as Detroit, President Trump wanting to make that again the motor city and the leader when it comes to automobile manufacturing and a rebirth of the steel industry that we have seen in the last few months as well. If you can remember back to our April visit just outside of Detroit, Michigan, in Macomb County, we enjoyed that 100-day success and rally just outside of the Motor City. So these big wins happening across the board as families are getting some relief at the pump when it comes to gas prices and mortgage rates plummeting. As 2026 begins, President Trump and the America First agenda is making more progress, delivering real, tangible relief to American families, with gas prices falling to their lowest levels in 5 years and mortgage rates dropping sharply. These declines, driven by the Trump administration's relentless pursuit of energy dominance and housing affordability, are putting money back in Americans' pockets and making the American dream more attainable than ever. Gas drops at its lowest price in years once again. Gas prices have hit their lowest levels since 2021 and have hit their lowest seventh straight week, according to Gas Buddy. The average price for regular gas is below $3 per gallon in 43 states, below $2.75 per gallon in 30 states, and or below $2.50 per gallon in 17 states. Now, in fact, Americans can even find gas below $2 per gallon at certain gas stations in at least 19 states in our union. This relief is putting real money back on Americans' pockets. Motorists are on track to spend $11 billion less on gas in 2026 compared to 2025, with the average household saving hundreds annually and overall gas spending as a share of disposable income reaching the lowest in 2 decades. And local media has picked up these stories, whether it be in San Antonio, Texas, throughout Florida. Also, KDAT, gas prices hit lowest levels since March of 2021. And with gas prices dropping nationwide, Iowa, Missouri, and even Illinois are now under $3 per gallon, which is roughly a miracle considering the policies in the Prairie State. Now, mortgage rates fall sharply to 3-year lows as the average interest rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage dipped to its lowest in nearly 3 years, falling more than 1% in the past calendar year, driving Americans' monthly housing rates and payments to their lowest point in over 2 years. Rents declining in 5 straight months, providing much needed relief for American families. The progress stems directly from President Trump's aggressive agenda to restore the American dream of home ownership, including directing the purchase of $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to push the borrowing costs lower and taking action to ban large institutional investors from buying up single-family homes, ensuring more properties remain available for everyday Americans. And whether it is dealing with too late Jerome Powell at the Fed, who's currently under investigation, to making sure that these institutional organizations are remained intact while reforming at the same time, this president welcomes everyone to the table to discuss a number of different items to debate and dialogue over. In fact, it's caught the eyes of many throughout the media, especially in the economic world, as we analyze what's happening throughout the country in these lowering of prices. If we have cut number 4 ready, Mr. Producer, the monetary policy commentary happening throughout the country right now.
Since Wednesday, monetary policy has gotten easier. Why? Because the president went out and announced, Fannie and Freddie, I want you to go buy $200 billion worth of mortgage bonds. That's unprecedented. That's monetary policy getting easier.
So much happening in the last course of roughly 13 days into the new year. Did you think it was going to be a slow one? By no means. Buckle up and get ready, as the Don Roe Doctrine has become the new focus on our hemisphere and defending our American interests. But we can't say that we were surprised, other than what has happened with the daycare fraud in Minnesota to Maine, even things we're seeing in Ohio. But now with the Iranian protests, and cut number 1, Mr. Producer, as President Trump taking to Truth Social to speak on this very important item, that the Iranian patriots keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stop. Help is on the way. MAGA, make Iran great again. Signed, President Donald J. Trump. So we'll watch all of that, as there has been some discussions in MAGA land about the Don Roe Doctrine and where do we focus our interests. And now President Trump being very clear about surgical strikes, and over the course of now almost 1 year back in office, he has shown the might and the willingness of an American military under civilian command that can get the job done in a robust way better than anyone else around the world. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaking to these items, that if it's not in the American interest, then it will not be pursued. And it's not about nation building, but rather flexing our muscle and realigning the global markets based on fairness and putting the American worker first. That has been the focus of this president, and peace through strength. We've seen it twice now, at least, actually on 3 occasions, when you look at the ending of the 12 days war between Israel and Iran and the knocking out of the nuclear sites in Tehran, to what's taken place with Operation Hawkeye in Syria to knock out ISIS and related units over the course of the middle of December into now the middle of January in Syria, with the assistance and blessing of the new Syrian government, all the way to Nicolas Maduro and his new court date set for St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, along with Ms. Flores, his wife, on narco trafficking charges, and the American military going in there to extradite an individual and a government that has not been recognized by many world governments, including the UK, to France, the European Union, among others. This president putting the American agenda first, and we'll see it in full scale and display about how all this relates to the Detroit Economic Club, because some have criticized that there's been too much focus on global geopolitics and tariffs and the reorganization of treaties and deals. But how does that affect the American worker? And I think that's coming in full display, especially today at the Detroit Economic Club, and especially when it comes to oil, gas, steel manufacturing, and making America the leader in developing the latest technologies with our vehicles. As we look at a live shot there of Detroit, Michigan, a wonderful place to visit, as it's having somewhat of a renaissance. It's been through some tough years, high inflation in its own regard, and a crime rate that was out of control, but deadly crime coming down and violent crime coming down in the city because of federal intervention. There's no question about that, as the proof is in the pudding. With cut number 2, Mr. Producer, low inflation really being showcased here in the country. Just out, great low inflation numbers for the United States of America. That means that Jerome Too Late Powell should cut interest rates meaningfully. If he doesn't, he will just show or just continue to be too late. Also out, great growth numbers. Thank you, Mr. Tariff, President Donald J. Trump. And the tariffs have clearly worked for this country and bringing fairness back, especially for NATO. In case you missed Friday's press conference when President Trump was meeting with oil executives and speaking to the press, he mentioned that if I was not involved, NATO would be done, gone. And there's a lot of truth to that because bringing everyone to that 5% threshold, with the exception of Spain, and that has been renegotiated through tariffs as well, we would not have a robust Western front to defend these countries that are part of this pact, as the United States of America was funding all of it for far too long without reciprocal payments from other member nations. Now, going back to Minnesota has been a huge thing in the news cycle over the course of the last several days. And cut number 3, Mr. Producer, President Trump speaking to this very issue to the people of Minnesota. They really want to live in a community in which there are thousands of already convicted murderers, drug dealers, addicts, rapists, violent, released and escaped prisoners, dangerous people from foreign mental institutions and insane asylums, and other deadly criminals, too dangerous to even mention. Now, all of the patriots of ICE want to do is remove them from your neighborhood and send them back to the prisons and mental institutions from where they came. Most in foreign countries who illegally entered the United States of America through Sleepy Joe Biden's horrible open borders policy, every place we go, crime comes down. Even in Chicago, Illinois, despite a weak and incompetent governor and mayor fighting us all the way. A big improvement was just made. Thousands of criminals removed. Minnesota Democrats love the unrest, the anarchists, and professional agitators causing, because it gets the spotlight off of the $19 billion that was stolen by really bad and deranged people. Fear not, great people of Minnesota. The day of reckoning and retribution is coming. And that $19 billion, what we know from the Somali illegal immigrant daycare fraud scheme, uncovered not by local media, not by national legacy network and cable outlets, but a 23-year-old, Nick Shirley, someone very brave and bold, who went out there with an iPhone and an assistant, his cameraman, and they got the footage and the conversations and have opened a conversation that really might be the reason why childcare costs so much in this country, or at least is contributing to just that. And thank God for the new media and conservative voices out there that are exposing this and that can stream it right here at a place like Right Side Broadcasting Network, that will tell the truth, that will tell stories that you may not see in other places. And that's why it's so important for us to have this partnership with freetrumpbook.com and a special commercial that we have for you this afternoon. If you're on the East Coast, a good morning to those all the way out on the West Coast, because is your child receiving the truth that's happening in the 45th and 47th administrations of Donald John Trump? Or are they given some far-left Marxist theory starting all the way in kindergarten? We've seen how educational institutions have been taken over by the Marxists in past years, And thank God that people are fighting back and choosing parochial school to private education, maybe military or even homeschooling on the rise in America. But regardless of that, it could be even in those institutions and outside of the public school where people are not allowed to dialogue as they once were on a college campus. And because of organizations like Turning Point USA, among others, that dialogue and debate continues. Thanks be to God for that. But is your child receiving that proper education? Well, you could check that out with Fighting Falsehoods with Facts through a great group like Free Trump Book. And here's their commercial to see how you could start.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com. President Trump is keeping his...
And that's freetrumpbook.com. So be sure to look into that. I've given that gift to the young ones in my family. And it's not only on the President of the United States who's currently holding the office. It's the history of America. It's great stories of our 16th President, Abraham Lincoln, his humble beginnings, to Martin Luther King Jr., born into a family of Baptist preachers who would proclaim from the steps of that Lincoln Memorial, "I have a dream, good God Almighty, free at last," and speaking those words directly from the Bible and quoting Exodus, so much in his mission, coming together with Protestant and Orthodox and Catholic followers and non-believers in the movement for civil rights in the 1960s. freetrumpbook.com, a great gift for those post-Christmas and throughout the year as they continue their studies, K through 18 and senior year of high school, all the way to college, as some of the goofiest ideas are found on a college campus in America in 2026. As we await President Trump to deliver remarks to the Detroit Economic Club that is upcoming, he's about to take a tour of the facilities there in the Motor City, and then we'll be making comments as well that we will likely bring to you live, as the Biden housing costs really created chaos for the American worker and the family, and that dream of owning a home becoming more out of reach during the last administration and that of the 44th president, Barack Hussein Obama. With cut number 5, we can analyze that deeper with the Biden housing costs video.
The president happens to believe, and I agree, that we need to lower interest rates. I think we need to take a look at this quantitative easing that's going on. By the way, I'm very happy with the president working with Fannie Mae and Fannie Mac and buying back those bonds, bring interest rates down and impact the cost of housing right now. So there's lots of great things out there the president is doing to impact the true problems, and that would be the cost of housing. Thanks to 4 years of Joe Biden's inflation, it led to a 50% increase in housing costs.
And that's Senator Marshall leading the way from the great state of Kansas, and with cut number 6, wants to, like President Trump, bring down credit card interest rates to that 10% mark if possible. President Trump stating on Truth Social, everyone should support great Republican Senator Roger Marshall's Credit Card Competition Act in order to stop the out-of-control swipe fee ripoff. Roger is a fantastic senator, and we can definitely agree with that here, Mr. President, as Mr. Marshall, the great senator from Kansas, has visited the show on a couple of occasions. But it's all about utility bills that might actually be burying people in the process, and we saw that in the past administration with cut number 7 under Sleepy Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats. The average American household's monthly utility bills went up massively, over 30%. I never want Americans to pay higher electricity bills because of data centers. Therefore, my administration is working with major American technology companies to secure their commitment to the American people. And we will have much to announce in the coming weeks. First up is Microsoft, who my team is working with and has been working with, and which will make major changes beginning this week to ensure that Americans don't pick up the tab for their power consumption in the form of paying higher utility bills. Now, we are the hottest country in the world by far, and number 1 in artificial intelligence. Data centers are key to that boom and keeping Americans free and secure, but the big technology companies who build them must pay their own way. Thank you, and congratulations to Microsoft. More to come soon. Signed, President DJT. As moments from now, he'll be taking a stroll through the Detroit Economic Club, talking to the experts on how to build up the Motor City once again and to be the leader in automobile manufacturing, a rebirth of America's steel industry, and how oil and gas can make a massive difference as EV technologies and artificial intelligence continue to grow and are built right here at home, especially surrounding these very important data centers. So it's all hands on deck, public and private partnerships, as the populist president, the people's president, continues his work as the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief. We'll take a quick commercial break for sponsorships. Stay with us here on the right side of history. You're watching Right Side Broadcasting Network. Don't change that dial.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. And Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida right now underway making his State of the State address. So that's taking place in the free sunshine state of Florida. And around this time of year, we hear from coast to coast as Governor Gavin Newsom as well did that the other day with a speech that many California critics are calling delusional, considering the amount that has been spent in that nation. Talk about inflation, or in state, what once was a nation, but with arguably the 5th to 7th largest GDP in the entire world when it is fully operable. California has a massive influence and natural resources that are unlike anywhere else in the United States of America. But this person clearly is focused on becoming president of the United States and trying to change the narrative of a failed administration during his tenure. And this is all after the 1-year anniversary of their terrible Pacific Palisade fires that affected so much of Los Angeles County. And we can remember President Trump early on, actually his first trip outside of Washington, D.C. as the 47th Commander-in-Chief, was right there to Los Angeles to be greeted by Governor Newsom and to have a robust discussion with L.A. Mayor Karen Bass. So we'll be watching California very closely in the midterms, as well as we've been your go-to live desk and returning as your rally network this year. So be ready for the midterms 2026. It's one that should be star-studded, as we know President Trump will be on the road again, per Susie Wiles and her comments with an interview before the end of the year stating that we're breaking the mold when it comes to traditional campaigning in the midterms and sending the top of the ticket out there with President Trump being not on the ballot, but his policies very much being discussed, dialogued, and debated, and will have a major effect on these new maps. As we've seen in the Tar Heel state of North Carolina, one of our favorites, Michael Whatley, who has raised an extraordinary amount of money. In fact, over $5.1 million in the last quarter, as he looks to take on former Democrat Governor Roy Cooper in what should be probably the most star-studded and highlighted race and competitive in North Carolina. So I'm sure we'll make a few visits on there, as it was very fitting. The end of the 2024 campaign, my very last rally in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, and we were just outside of there before the Christmas holidays, celebrate all the successes of the past year of this administration. We're very grateful here at Right Side Broadcasting Network to have our sponsors that help us get out the truth to you, the American people, to give you unbridled access to your 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief, the 50th Vice President, and the 119th Congress, now in their second term. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, focused on taking care of you and yours, with 10% off of ivermectin, antibiotics, antivirals, maintenance medications, and much, much more. Use code RSBN10. That's RSBN10, the pharmacy that supports you, and generic off-label options to protect you and yours. You have over 300 options here. They're reviewed by a licensed medical doctor right here in the United States, sent right back to the door, so it's all convenient for you. Scan that QR code there now. Go to RSBN10 for all of those discounts, whether it is ivermectin to hydrochloroquine, NAD+, methylene blue, to emergency medical kits, and everything in between. Very good to have on hand, and especially Tamiflu this time of year. It's hard to get in January and February, so be sure at the early part of this month to jump in and go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN to find out what you and your family need. You could travel with these medications as well. And the local or some pharmacies do not even prescribe these great medications like ivermectin that have been on the market for over half a century and FDA approved, whether it's Parasite Cleanse to even now with NAD+ and methylene blue, finding assistance and help with dementia and Alzheimer's as they continue to study these life-saving drugs. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Code RSBN10 is the go-to. Scan that QR code now for further savings. Also, thank you to Monetary Gold. I want to take a moment to tell you about this great company with everything happening in the world, so much in these first 13 days of 2026. Well, security preservation should be on the top of your mind. So grab that complimentary presidential gold guide today. Call today, do not delay, 888-617-7994. Ask how you can eliminate your annual IRA fees permanently for life. RSBN4thegold.com. When it comes to physical gold and silver, choosing the right company is an absolute essential. It matters just as the metals themselves. Monetary Gold, been in business for 26 years and they have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating with a reputation for doing things the right way, honestly, clarity, with respect for customers, with the utmost integrity. And I'm telling you, you won't find a better person than Scott Chenet, their senior account manager, and someone who does not push gimmicks. And you could tell from his Los Angeles, California offices where we interview him, those phones are ringing off the hook, and his team ready to bring you real market value and dive in, not some gimmick of a one-size-fits-all, but rather get to know you on a personal level, your financial situation, and how gold and silver can help you buy that next property or even perhaps build generational wealth for you and yours. So again, call today, 888-617-7994. I could not be more proud of this partnership with our friends at Monetary Gold for your wealth security and preservation. Visit rsbnforthegold.com. And then go on to kalshi.com/RSBN with that extra money that you have in store. Those Indiana Hoosiers take it on Monday against the Miami Hurricane. It's going to be another big weekend of football as we enter the divisional round of battles. 4 of 6 contests this past weekend, and 4 road teams were able to take it from the home team advantage, as we also might be saying goodbye to Aaron Rodgers, the future Hall of Famer, 41 years young, likely playing his last game as the NFC North champions yesterday, as the Houston Texans really overran them in Pittsburgh last night. But if you watch the Chicago Bears take the cheese graters out to the Packers, that was an exciting Saturday night of football in that comeback in the fourth quarter, one of the largest in playoff history. Kalshi.com/RSBN. It's sports, it's music, it's culture, it's politics, it's the American experiment. You might as well trade and bet on it because I'm sure you have an opinion about it. So get some winnings going at Kalshi.com/RSBN, trading on anything as we look towards the speech roughly 80 minutes from now, a big 8-0, President Trump to deliver remarks from the Detroit Economic Club. We're breaking down some of his true socials and comments on a number of different items as we look at a world that day by day seemingly becomes more dangerous, but this administration focused on America First policies and a revamping of the Monroe Doctrine. For those not familiar, at that time, President James Monroe invoking an America First of his era to make sure that European aristocracies and governments did not unleash their influence in the Western Hemisphere, throughout the Americas, and especially down into South America. Well, the map has flipped slightly, with Asian nations having great influence over Venezuela. We've seen that with Russia and China, and in turn, they are reliant upon their oil and gas. Well, that has really changed over the course of the last 10 days or so, and it feels like, in a good way, it has been a day by day of what's next and what's going to turn the corner as this president and his cabinet focused on not only the safety of the United States and its citizens, but also wealth and prosperity moving deeper into the 21st century. With cut number 8, Mr. Producer, the irony that Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Ms. Flores, to face justice in New York City and in the same jail cell as Luigi Mangione, accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO. You have a socialist mayor running New York City. As President Trump mentioning, congestion pricing in Manhattan is a disaster for New York. It's got to be ended immediately. It's never worked before, and it will never work now. I love New York, and I hate to see it being destroyed so rapidly with such obviously foolish policy. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Signed, President Donald J. Trump. And with cut number 9, tariff on those doing business with the Iranian government. President Trump is getting serious about this, as we've seen reports of anywhere from 500 to over 2,000 people having been killed over the weekend protesting their government. Effective immediately, any country doing business with the Islamic Republic of Iran will pay a tariff of 25% on any and all business being done with the United States of America. This order is final and conclusive. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Again, signed by the president. And that will mostly be affecting places like China, Russia, India, the BRICS nations that have looked to divest from the American dollar. And as President Trump has said, even though we have close ties and good friendships with places like India and good relationships on a specific level, not necessarily with the governments, but President Trump stating that he gets along with Vladimir Putin, that he gets along with Xi Jinping, this will be something that directly goes in their direction if they continue to do business with the mullahs and the powers that be who are oppressing the Iranian people. Now, the big thing we're watching here is the potential ruling for the Supreme Court of the United States. Today, they're listening to arguments with an Idaho case regarding transgender athletes in sports and whether or not that is fair per Title IX. So going back to the Biden administration, they gutted Title IX and, in their view, expanded it to protect transgender athletes. But the problem is that Title IX was put into effect to protect womanhood in the first place and to make sure that they're safe while competing. We've had terrible situations happen, whether it was Riley Gaines' experience to the Leah Thomas, who is a man, a biological man, who was changing in their locker room. That perhaps one of the more high-profile situations and occurrences of this, but individuals even competing on a volleyball court. One girl losing her eyesight as a result of a volleyball being spiked by a biological man right in her face. That should never happen in the United States of America, especially those who are at the high school level. It's biological science that the Supreme Court will ultimately decide on, hearing those arguments today. But another crucial decision upcoming, and the one with the transgender case, we may not hear the exact decision until June, and we might not hear their ruling on tariffs until June. But with this cut, Mr. Producer, with cut number 10, the actual numbers that we would have to pay back if for any reason the Supreme Court of the United States of America would rule against tariffs, this would be hundreds of billions of dollars to be returned, and that does not include the amount of payback that countries and companies would require for the investments that they are making on building plants, factories, equipment, for the purpose of being able to avoid the payment of tariffs. When these investments are added, we are talking about trillions of dollars being invested. It would be a complete mess and almost impossible for our country to pay back. Anybody who says that it can be quickly and easily done would be making a false, inaccurate, or totally misunderstood answer to this very large and complex question. It may not be possible, but if it were, it would be dollars that would be so large that it would take many years to figure out what number we are talking about, even who, when, and where to pay. Remember, when America shines brightly, the world shines brightly. In other words, the Supreme Court rules against the United States of America on this national security bonanza, we're screwed. And that's President Donald John Trump. And that's why you elected him, folks, because he tells it like it is. And it's deeply disturbing to think that this could all be reversed. And I'd be very interested to watch that case closely, because we've used tariffs time and again to enrich this country and to make it strong. In fact, we had so much tariff wealth in the late 1880s and the 1890s that we set up blue ribbon commissions. Maybe you can go for a drive in your community today and look at the private or even public schools in your community that might be on the Blue Ribbon Commission. That was established to help fund education because we had so much money coming in. Everything changed with the progressive movement in 1913, that federal income tax, something that should ultimately be abolished. President Trump, we are awaiting his remarks to the Detroit Economic Club. He's taking a tour right now at 12:47 Eastern and local time in Detroit, Michigan. A live shot there as we thank the great All Family Pharmacy for the work that they do here on the right side of history. It's 10% off right now. Ivermectin, antibiotics, antivirals, maintenance meds, and much, much more. Emergency medical kits that will make a massive difference for you and yours, so you don't have to rush out to the local urgent care or get in line to see your doctor who might not be available. Tamiflu goes fast this time of year with January and February, and flu is through the roof right now. Apparently very easy to contract, so make sure that you have over 300 plus essential medications there for you, including NAD plus to methylene blue. I'll take you through the process here. You order, and then a licensed U.S. doctor on the other side to review this. And All Family Pharmacy, it's really in the name, family. They are going up against the local pharmacies that do it the industrial way, the corporate way, that does not put the consumer nor the patient first. But at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, you don't even need insurance. There's no red tape, no bureaucracy, simply a pharmaceutical note, and their team can walk you through anything that you might have in regards to ailments and what might assist with that. Again, these life-saving medications like ivermectin, NAD+, methylene blue, hydrochloroquine, they've been on the market for over half century and FDA approved. And then all of a sudden, last couple of years, for one reason or another, somewhat controversial. You can make your conclusions on that, but they are definitely experts in this field, and they're the pharmacy that supports your medical freedom, your right to try, most favored nation status as well. So scan that QR code there, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. That is the code RSBN10 for 10% off now. As we go to angelpaste.com, the miracle that is the original vitamin B cream that I use on a daily basis. Try to keep my skin glowing through the winter holidays and this time of year. They also have the orange option, vitamin C infused, non-GMO, no chemicals, so it keeps you nice and healthy to give you that extra boost of energy and vitamin C to fight off the cold this flu season. Also, their natural facial spray. You can take on the road with you or to paint that town red for date night. Angelpaste.com, a great company out of Spring, Texas. They're off the Gulf of America, and they're also Christian-owned. They hire veterans, and we love them here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. Also, Tax Network USA. That's tnusa.com/RSBN. Settle those back taxes today. Protect yourself from the IRS. Call today. Do not delay. 800-357-1415. That's 800-357-1415. Protect yourself from the IRS. Settle your back taxes now. tnusa.com/RSBN. And they're experts in the field. Many of them have worked for the IRS. Many have worked in the accountant field for countless decades. To guys and gals who can make sure that you're safe and not on the run from the IRS. And whether it was you missed April 15th or October 15th, just started a business, whatever it might be, feel free to give them a call today. Do not delay. 800-357-1415. It is tnusa.com/RSBN. We are very grateful for all of our sponsors here on the right side of history. As we get ready for roughly 1 hour from now, President Trump to address the Detroit Economic Club to talk about tariffs, lower inflation, and making America wealthy again. So stick with us here on the right side of history as we break down all of today's news. I'm Robert McNeely. We'll take a quick commercial break for sponsors here on the network. Don't change that dial.
his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com. President Trump.
That's freetrumpbook.com, a great place to go to be on the right side of history and share with everyone why this president is working overtime as the hardest working president in modern American history. Now, Waltz is wrong. There's no question about this. If you look over the course of the last several days and his gaslighting, the White House releasing the fact that Minnesota's governor has been an absolute failure. President Trump's immigration policies are saving lives. What exactly does Tim Waltz find so objectionable about enforcing our immigration laws? In his pathetic, inflammatory press conference from just days ago, Waltz bizarrely claimed there is no verifiable evidence that President Trump's immigration enforcement operations are making America safer. Radical left lunatics like Waltz, blinded by their deep delusions and seething hatred for President Trump, have become completely untethered from reality, ignoring the indisputable evidence that President Trump's immigration policies are literally saving lives. Now, the nation likely saw the largest ever one-year drop in homicides in 2025, with especially steep drops in cities where the Trump administration undertook targeted immigration enforcement and crime prevention operations. For example, a single immigration enforcement operation in Florida resulted in the arrest of 150 illegal alien sex offenders, while operations in Chicago drove a dramatic decrease in violent crime. I'm going to say that one more time. A single immigration enforcement operation in Florida resulted in the arrest of 150 illegal alien sex offenders, and operations in Chicago driving a dramatic decrease in violent crime. Why would Democrat mayors or governors be against protecting their residents in their municipalities? It's a very valid question for people like Governor J.B. Pritzker, to Governor Newsom out west, to Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, or Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and of course, Mayor Mamdani and Governor Kathy Hochul of the Empire State of New York. A staggering 70% of 650,000 plus illegal aliens deported from the Trump administration since he took office on January 20th of last year have been charged with or convicted of crimes. So this entire narrative that you see from the House of Representatives, as they're scolding DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, that over 70% of U.S. citizens with no criminal record have been arrested by ICE. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's patently false. And in many situations, they're claiming that these people did not do anything illegal or did not break the law. And it may be as simple as crossing the border illegally. What did they do there? They broke the law. But again, over 650,000 of these individuals apprehended, of the millions brought in by the Biden administration, have serious criminal records. Now, deaths of on-duty law enforcement officers dropping by nearly 25% in 2025, as sadly attacks have gone up on them, especially with motor vehicles, as we've seen over the course of the last week. Traffic fatalities dropping dramatically as well, with eased congestion in high immigration cities and the removal of more than 9,500 non-English speaking commercial truck drivers who pose safety risks on our roadways. And this was a main focus of the Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Duffy, as getting these people off of the road that cannot read or even speak the language, providing much danger on our interstate highway system. Fentanyl trafficking across the southern border has been slashed in half, leading to lower fentanyl purity levels and fewer overdose deaths, ravaging American families. And we've had people on the network here, like Ann Fundner, who lost her son to this poisoning. And I think this has changed the outlook for so many Americans who have been affected by this terrible scourge, that it's not looked at so much as a drug addiction problem, but there is a fueling of the need and the demand, and the fact that it's so smart nowadays, whether you're an older person to a younger person, even if it's over-the-counter medication, to know exactly where that came from, because it might be a pill laced with fentanyl. How many of these students and parents, please speak with your students, whether it be in high school or on the college campus, who will take Adderall, which is very available. And we've heard of these cases where it's been something off of the black market that has led to fentanyl poisoning. Know where your medications, especially the over-the-counter, come from, as we're living in a different day and age. Now, emergency rooms report significant reductions in illegal immigrant visits, freeing up critical resources to better serve American citizens in need of urgent medical care. Now, the share of Americans viewing crime as a very serious issue fell by nearly 15% in 2025, reflecting the real-world impact of President Trump's approach on everyday American lives. It is an indisputable fact that President Trump's immigration policies are saving American citizens from being killed, raped, and assaulted at the hands of criminal illegal aliens with no right to be here. Period. Immigration is not a God-given right. It is something that should be done through meritocracy. And we have been by far the most generous in world history when it comes to bringing us, the tired, the poor, the lowly, those yearning to be free, who saw that Statue of Liberty, including my own ancestors, especially in the turn of the 20th century. And they did it the right way, the legal way, through Ellis Island. And that can be done once again, because the greatest travesty is the refugees, and those especially in Belarus, to Poland and the Ukraine, that were denied or turned down during the Biden administration because of that wide open border. If Walton Democrats find that to be troublesome, it only further exposes their disturbing tendencies and priorities, putting criminals ahead of Americans, including $19 billion that we know of in fraud scams. Thank you to our good friends over at Monetary Gold. I wanted to take a moment to tell you about how wonderful this organization truly is. With everything happening in the economy, a lot of people are taking the time and looking at ways to protect what they've worked hard to create. So wealth, security, preservation, all is done best through this amazing company at Monetary Gold. 888-617-7994. Ask how you can eliminate your annual IRA fees permanently for life. RSBN4thegold.com. When you're looking to protect what matters most, and when it comes to physical gold and silver, choosing the right company matters just as much as the metals themselves. Monetary Gold has been in business for 26 years. They have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and has built a reputation for doing things the right way. Clarity, honesty, integrity, and not giving you a one-size-fits-all, but rather getting to know you on a personal level, knowing your financial history, knowing how gold and silver can make a massive difference for you and yours to buy that next property or even create generational wealth in your household. There's no confusion. They take the time to explain. And as we interview our dear friend Scott Chenet, who's leading the program as a senior portfolio manager and trade executive right on the floor there in their Los Angeles, California offices, the phone's ringing off the hook to protect what matters most for for you, the American people. If you're thinking about physical gold and silver, especially through a precious metals IRA, this is the kind of company you want to talk to, and Scott Cheney is my guy for you. RSBN4thegold.com, 888-617-7994. Ask how you can eliminate those annual IRA fees permanently and for life. Don't let those get in the way of making a difference for your wealth, security, and preservation. And when you have some of that saved up, why not go to mypillow.com/RSBN and pay a visit to our dear friend who's extending the Christmas sale, Mr. Mike Lindell, now a Republican gubernatorial candidate in the great state of Minnesota. That's where he produces and manufactures all of his high-quality products, over 2,000. Save up to 80%, 80, this holiday season as we continue to be merry, even though it's a little bit cold outside and the sun still doesn't stay out that long, but the days are extending as we get deeper into 2026. Support Mr. Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network by shopping now, mypillow.com/RSBN, and save with code RSBN. Easy to remember there for over 2,000 different items. I have the MyPillow 1.0. I'm hearing the MyPillow 2.0 is even better. I've got the My Slippers, My Coffee that I enjoy to get my day started. So for a better night's rest and an even better morning, mypillow.com/RSBN, the place to go for great savings with code RSBN. Thank you to Mike Lindell and his team, as we are your go-to live desk, bringing you unbridled access to the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief, the 50th Vice President, the 119th Congress, and we are ready to go back out on the road. 2026 midterms to join President Trump in these newly drawn congressional districts. We had our dear friend Scott Pressler up there in the crossroads of Indiana talking about primaries for those state senators that did not vote on the new map. So be sure to watch all of that. You could donate at rsbnetwork.com/donate. And text RSBN to 801-801. We also have that address there, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. The loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. The loveliest village on the plains is Auburn, Alabama, 36830. And then All America First updates and exclusive offers as well at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter, a great place to visit for the written word. We have some great writers here at the network as well to dive into the issues of the day. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. Roughly 55 minutes from now, President Trump to address the Detroit Economic Club. So stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We'll take a quick commercial break for additional sponsors. You're on the right side of history.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits. The meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting. For those just tuning in, welcome to the Right Side of History. That's a live shot there of Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City. President Trump will be addressing the Detroit Economic Club at the top of the hour, so be sure to stick with us here as we'll take you there live. I'm Robert McNeely as we are breaking down what's happening in the world, and so much happening on a global scale, from protests in Iran to those freedom fighters in the streets, many reportedly losing their lives over the course of the weekend as that unrest continues, with inflation skyrocketing in the People's Republic of Iran, and a regime that has truly oppressed its people since the revolution in 1979. President Trump putting tariffs and threatening those on those who would do business with the Iranian regime. So that's a focus on the BRICS nations, especially India, China, and Russia. But President Trump focused domestically as well, as the next court date for Nicolas Maduro, the accused alleged narco-trafficking terrorist, and his wife, who was apparently the brains behind the operation. Their next court date set for St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. So we're watching all that as the White House explaining how Trump policies power the United States auto sales to the best since 2019, the best year since 2019 prior to COVID, proving the experts wrong again. Earlier this year, analysts claimed President Donald Trump's Made in America trade agenda would deal a serious blow to automakers, cut sales by millions, and increase prices. Now, these so-called experts could not have been more wrong. In 2025, new U.S. vehicle sales rose by 2.4%, the industry's strongest performance since 2019. Automakers thriving. Ford has reported its best annual sales since 2019. General Motors saw its overall vehicle sale soar, posting its best year for SUV sales in decades. Stellantis increased its Jeep brand sales for the first time since 2018. Honda posting its best U.S. sales performance since 2021. And Hyundai achieved record U.S. sales. Tariffs have had no negative effect on vehicle prices. And something we're actually seeing here throughout the Southeast as President Trump met with Hyundai, Kia, and Toyota executives in the Oval Office. There was Speaker Mike Johnson and House Leader Steve Scalise, the Majority Leader, and other business leaders to talk about the building of plants from Louisiana to Alabama to Georgia especially, and even automobile factories and plants in South Carolina. So the great titans of Japanese and South Korean automobile manufacturers really headquartering and setting up their spaces right here in the United States of America. And as President Trump mentioned outside of the Motor City just last year in late April for the 100-day celebration of his administration, stating that the United Auto Workers are completely with this movement and vice versa. It's about putting the worker first and bringing America made back at an affordable cost right here in America. And the UAW putting out a statement that while the other predecessors, the living former presidents, decided to bankrupt Detroit and bankroll Beijing, the complete opposite is true now as President Trump seeks to rebuild the economic titan that was Detroit, Michigan, of the 50s and the 60s. It can be done, as the success validates President Trump's all-out push to make driving great again. Americans purchasing made-in-America vehicles can now deduct auto loan interest thanks to President Trump's historic One Big Beautiful Bill. President Trump's trade agenda has spurred massive investments in United States production from automakers including Ford, Hyundai, Stellantis, General Motors, Honda, Toyota, Scout Motors, Rolls-Royce, Mercedes-Benz, Kia, Nissan, and others. President Trump's reversed burdensome Biden-era fuel economy standards that would have added nearly $1,000 to the average new vehicle cost, saving Americans billions over the coming years. Now, the Trump administration has eliminated the unpopular vehicle stop-start requirement, approved production for affordable and efficient tiny cars, revoking the state-level electric vehicle mandates, and taking numerous steps to reverse hidden vehicle cost increase imposed by the Democrats. So some of those likely to be highlighted today at the Detroit Economic Club, a group that has sought to make this city really the American greatness that it once was, from being nicknamed the Motor City to the birth of Motown. There's nothing quite like Detroit, and it's nice to see that its economic resurrection can be happening under this administration. Now, the White House also releasing 57 times that sick, unhinged Democrats declared war on law enforcement, because although we're talking economics today and the robust nature of the tariffs and the trillions being brought back into the United States and a global realignment of the Don Roe doctrine, you can't help but look at the paid agitators and the radical left lunatics going after law enforcement. As we just celebrated National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day on Friday, the Trump administration proudly honored the brave patriots of ICE and all law enforcement who put their lives on the line to protect America. In stark contrast, unhinged radical left lunatics have escalated the inflammatory remarks and the torment, the vicious attacks on these very heroes, branding them as Nazis, terrorists, Gestapo thugs, while inciting their delusional supporters to unleash violence. Now, as ICE valiantly defends our sovereignty and our communities, here are 57 times Democrats have recklessly, deliberately stoked hatred and division against them, as they continue to do on a daily basis. The lame duck governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, smeared ICE officers as a threat to the public, called them reckless, suggested that the state is at war with federal officers and under attack by ICE as the modern-day Gestapo. Not my words, his words. This is all while the Chicago police chief stating to people, don't interfere with law enforcement operations. Get involved in politics, perhaps run yourself, go and protest peacefully and patriotically. Do not attack law enforcement officers. They are uniformed officers, and when they're surrounded, to quote the Chicago police chief, they have every reason to believe they're being ambushed and can use the force they've been trained with to make sure that they are safe, their community is safe, and their colleagues are safe as well. So something to watch as we continue to go through 2026. A major thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Get the essential medications needed today, whether it's Tamiflu to ivermectin to hydrochloroquine to NAD+ and methylene blue, among many others. Emergency medical kits on hand as well. Let me tell you a bit about this great company. You can use code RSBN10 there to get 10% off. Scan the QR code there as I'm explaining how they're going against the traditional pharmacy. Not because they stand as brick and mortar, but the fact that they won't prescribe many of these life-saving medications that have been on the market for over half a century, whether as Parasite Cleanse to now what's being discovered for remedies against dementia and Alzheimer's, even reversing those diseases. This allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, leading with online pharmacies to get you the off-label generic medications you seek and desire with no red tape. And it's all in the name, family. That's what matters most. So when you go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, not an issue at all. If you don't have insurance, just a pharmaceutical note needed for your order to be reviewed by a licensed U.S. doctor. They send it right back to your door within a matter of days. It's fast, it's convenient, affordable. And again, you have over 300 options for maintenance medications to antivirals, antibiotics, ivermectin, Tamiflu, so important this time of year in cold and flu season. You can also take these medications on the road with you. So be sure to visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use code RSBN10. That's RSBN10 for 10% off today. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And Kalshi.com/RSBN. Let's hear it. Let's hear your picks, your predictions for the divisional series of the National Football League. How about those Indiana Hoosiers? They could be the first team under Curt Cignetti from James Madison University and a former assistant of Coach Nick Saban at Alabama to lead the Hoosiers and completely turn around their football program in 2 seasons and go 16-0, the first to do that potentially in the modern era. All they have is one more obstacle, those Miami Hurricane, who played a fantastic football this year and will have a home football national championship at Hard Rock Cafe Stadium down there in Miami, Florida. So it's going to be a barn burner on January 19th. Take your picks now. Also, how about my Chicago Bears and their comeback victory, one of the largest deficits to overcome the hated Green Bay Packers last Saturday. An exciting time in football as 4 of the 6 games, the visiting teams overtaking their home opponents. So we have a lot of fun sports in store, but Kalshi's more than that. It's music, it's culture, it's politics, it's more. It's the American experiment in real time. You might as well bet and trade on it. Kalshi.com/RSBN. And with your winnings, why not buy a gift from the great angelpaste.com? I use the Miracle Cream every day. It's the original vitamin B infused from this Christian-owned company. They hire veterans. They're based out of Spring, Texas, off the Gulf of America. They also have the orange option, good year-round, but especially this time of year, as it is cold and flu season, and a great way to put this on your skin. Also have that ointment and a way for vitamin C to enter your body in a healthy manner without all the chemicals and the red dyes that other options might have. There's also a natural facial spray to paint the town red. So visit angelpaste.com, experience the miracle that is a company unlike any other. And we are very happy that we are partnering with them because these are simple, good people out of the Lone Star State. Is there any better place to live in America? Right there in Spring, Texas, off the Gulf of America. Thank you to angelpaste.com. As we cover what these demon rats have said about our brave ICE agents and DHS, Border Patrol, and those who are putting their lives on the line every day. In fact, I read recently that Secret Service and the Homeland Security Institute and investigations, they are all hiring with very large bonuses. So if you're looking to make a lateral or an upward move in law enforcement, we're very grateful for you. And we've seen that in the recruitment since President Trump has taken office since January 20th of last year, the military numbers going up, the robust nature of allowing good cops to be good cops. As FBI Director Kash Patel has said, you see a lot more of the morale boost happening. With that said, it's hard for them in these cities as whistles are being blown throughout the night, as people in New York City calling for the hanging of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Just disgusting language to use and violent, heated rhetoric that needs to be toned down from the far left and their paid agitators. It's a remarkable thing to think about. You know, they like to make up narratives that the former vice president was threatened and almost lost his life a few years ago on a certain January 6th, which was just another day in American history as far as I'm concerned. But then when actual threats against cabinet members happen, that just simply is ignored. And the other side of this, too, for these Democrat elected officials, they're so concerned, and as tragic as it was to lose life in Minneapolis, they completely disregard the fact that a car was used or attempted to be used as a deadly weapon and, in fact, struck an ICE agent, an officer, who had split seconds to decide how he would defend not only his person, his bodily autonomy, but also the community and his colleagues right there on the ground in Minneapolis. Shame on you for ignoring people like Jesselyn Nungary or Laken Riley or Rachel Morin, 37-year-old mom of 5 who was jogging like Laken and lost her life to an illegal alien criminal. It's disgusting. But for those to keep pushing out these false narratives, shame on you, including people like California Governor Gavin Newsom likened ICE to secret police, calling them authoritarian, calling for people to push back. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, perhaps the worst in America, claimed ICE is turning the country into Nazi Germany. The Empire State Governor, New York, Kathy Hochul, accused ICE of terrorizing people. Pennsylvania's Governor, Josh Shapiro, ICE officers make our neighborhoods less safe. Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan said ICE officers cause chaos and terror. Senator Chuck Schumer, someone who is likely not going to have a political career for much longer, declaring that ICE does not belong in our neighborhood. Senator Tina Smith calling ICE a clear and present threat. Senator John Hickenlooper of Colorado smearing ICE as a reign of terror. Senator Merkley likened ICE operations to fascism and claimed officers are doing nothing but terrorizing our communities. Crazy Bernie Sanders out there again asking people to stop ICE from what they are doing as soon as possible. His insane colleague, Senator Elizabeth Warren, also claiming ICE is intentionally stoking fear and tearing communities apart. State 48's Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona said ICE exists to scare the American people. Also, Senator Mark Warner equated ICE to officers being brutal dictators. Very strange words from the Commonwealth of Virginia and someone representing them there. Dick Blumenthal, someone who lied about his Vietnam service, who claimed he was there and he wasn't, accusing ICE of spreading lawlessness and recklessness. Alex Padilla of California saying ICE is causing indiscriminate violence. Dick Durbin of Illinois, ICE officers committing atrocities. Oh, and the coup de grace Representative Ilhan Omar said ICE is state police calling their officers vile and beyond cruel, and stated that abolishing ICE is not enough. It's extraordinary to see the comments from these far left agitators and Marxists who are within our government. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry demanded ICE get the F out of the city and accused officers of terrorizing our communities. Mayor Mamdani of New York City saying ICE enforcement is an attack on us all. Oh, and perhaps maybe one of the worst in America, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson accusing ICE of being secret police who are terrorizing our communities and said ICE was a lawless, racist force. It's extraordinary to think that there are elected officials in this country who refuse to put themselves in the shoes of law enforcement agents who don't see Republican or Democrat. They don't see black or white. They swear an oath to the Constitution to protect it, to defend it, and to uphold the rule of law. And a few short years ago, it was common sense not to drive your vehicle into any business, public entity, let alone a police officer, as we saw in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So that's why it's so important to remain engaged in these upcoming elections. It matters who sets policy, because we are seeing a major party in the United States of America now turning on law enforcement because they can't get their so-called way. And it's perhaps one of the most disturbing examples of lawlessness and recklessness and Marxism that we've seen in the modern American experiment. Now, as we await President Trump to deliver remarks to the Detroit Economic Club, that'll be roughly 30 or so minutes from now. He's taking a tour of the facilities with those experts at hand to look into what is the next big steps for this once great American city. And as crime is going down, mostly thank you to the federal agents from ICE and Border Patrol and DHS and Commander Greg Bavino, who has been so brave in the face of radical domestic terrorism. This president is focused on giving a rebirth to not only Motown, but the Motor City, a beautiful place to visit and to enjoy as he presents remarks to the Detroit Economic Club today. Also, Caroline Leavitt from the White House stating that American workers win big as inflation remains low and wages surge. Yet another report confirms President Trump has defeated the inflation crisis inherited from the Biden administration. While so-called experts continue to be proven wrong month after month, President Trump's powerful tariffs, massive tax cuts for working families, and sweeping deregulatory agenda have positioned our economy for a boom in 2026. Americans are already seeing the results. Workers' wages are rising rapidly. Trillions in investments are flowing into the country to create good-paying jobs, and economic growth is accelerating. Here are the keys you need to know before the bottom of the hour. Core inflation coming in below economists' expectations. President Trump ending the auto pen's inflation crisis. Wages are rising. Real private sector weekly earnings back on track to rise 4% in President Trump's first full year in office. In fact, private sector workers getting a bump in pay and a gain of roughly $1,100, gaining back some of the purchasing power they lost under Biden. This is on the bonus to our military just before the Christmas holiday of checks going out $1,776. Now, blue-collar workers are seeing real results as well, on track to see their real annual earnings rise by $1,300 in President Trump's first full year in office. Mining and logging workers back on track for $2,200 in real wage increases, and construction workers should expect around $1,400 back in their pocket. Manufacturing workers on track as well to gain $1,300. Cars becoming more affordable under President Trump as well. And this is a main focus today at the Detroit Economic Club. So we look forward to President Trump's comments on that and much, much more as we reach the bottom of the hour. We'll do a changing of the guard here and take a quick commercial break for our sponsors on the right side of history. I'm Robert McNeely. Make way for Matthew Alvarez as we get ready for your 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald John Trump, at the top of the hour. You're watching the right side of history on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Don't change that dial. We'll be back with you momentarily.
Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
And welcome back. It's 1:34 Eastern Time. A little bit of a changing of the guard. Of course, our RSBN host, Robert McNeely, kicking off our coverage today, which started, of course, some time ago, 12 o'clock noon, as we head to Motor City here in just a bit, as Robert was breaking down the specifics about today's visit as well. So we're looking forward to seeing President Trump and some of the speakers that speak before the president. As soon as we see that live feed, we'll take you there. Now, at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, there will be, again, a few speakers prior to the president. Then as soon as we see that feed, again, we'll take you right there. So also, as many are learning today, conservative author Scott Adams passed away after a battle with cancer. And Scott's final statement was, quote, "I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior and look forward to spending an eternity with him," end quote. Scott Adams was 68 years old. In the meantime, let's go to President Trump as he spoke briefly with the press outside the White House prior to his Michigan departure. Let's take a look.
Going to Detroit. We'll be talking about how well the economy is doing. As you know, the inflation numbers just came out, and we have very low inflation, so that would give Tulane Powell the chance to give us a nice, beautiful, big rate cut, which would be great for the country, but rates are falling also, and growth is going up. We have tremendous growth numbers, So growth is going up. So I'll be talking about that today in Detroit, the big speech. And I can only say that the country's doing well. You saw my statement on Iran. You saw my statement on Minnesota. On Minnesota, we have taken out killers, rapists, drug dealers, people from mental institutions that came in illegally. All of them, most of them came in illegally. They're from other countries. They came in under the Biden ridiculous open border policy, and we've gotten a lot of them out. We just had numbers from Chicago, where Chicago crime has gone down pretty good. It could go down 100% virtually, but we're fighting with that governor who's so incompetent. But as you know, we took out a lot of killers, murderers, drug dealers, drug addicts, mental institution people, and people from jails. We took them out of Chicago. So Chicago's got much better numbers now than it had a few months ago. We will get no credit for it, but these are minor details. Crime in Washington, D.C. is almost non-existent. It's a safe place, so people can come bring their families. They can send their son and daughter to look at Lincoln, Washington, Jefferson, or whatever they want to look at. But it's almost non-existent. We're very proud of that. Memphis is making tremendous strides, and so is New Orleans. We have a whole group of people, and crime in New Orleans is down about 65%. We've only been there for 3 weeks. So it's really amazing what's happening throughout the country. The crime numbers are among the best numbers we've ever had. Well, he's billions of dollars over budget. So he either is incompetent or he's crooked. I don't know what he is, but certainly he doesn't do a very good job.
Are you committed to mass deportations among all this bad PR that we've seen, the attacks that we've seen on ICE?
We're getting rid of a lot of people that are criminals that shouldn't be in our country. They came in through Biden's open borders, and we're getting them out of our country. That's why our crime numbers are so good. We have record low crime numbers. Thank you.
And of course, we're going to have some video of the president there at the Ford plant in Detroit. Of course, checking out some F-150s. I know there's a lot of fans of the F-150 out there. I'm a fan of the F-150, but also the Silverado is great with Chevy and, of course, Dodge. There's just a lot of great trucks out there. But obviously, President Trump in Detroit today. So we'll go to that video in just a minute. Also, the president speaking kind of off the cuff there during that tour, and we're getting that video uploaded for you. We'll air some of that here as we await the president to take the stage at about 2 o'clock Eastern time. There are a few pre-programmed speakers, so we'll go there as well, as long as there's a feed to those speeches. Say that a few times fast. And then, of course, we'll hear from President Trump. Definitely hear from him today around 2 o'clock in Detroit. In the meantime, all of this brought to you by some great sponsors, including Tax Network USA. So if you're looking for some financial peace of mind, you can get it right there with Tax Network USA. You can settle those back taxes today, or at least get that ball rolling. 800-357-1415 is the number. tnusa.com/RSBN. 2 places to go, the website or the phone number. But at the end of the day, really, the financial peace of mind you get working with great patriots at Tax Network USA. Great, great way to do it. Right there, Tax Network USA. Also, MyPillow, mypillow.com/RSBN. Of course, a lot of great products right there for you to check out. So all you have to do is go to mypillow.com and go with the /RSBN and use the RSBN promo code. You'll save quite a few dollars there. Always good to save some money. mypillow.com/RSBN. Great products, great person right there. Mike Lindell, of course, running for governor in Minnesota. And my, oh my, do we need Mike in Minnesota. And that's not just a fancy, cute line. We just need that. We need people that are common sense patriots like Mike running Minnesota, not Walz, as he, decided not to run anyway for the next term because of all the fraud. But anyway, MyPillow, based in Minnesota. Go ahead and support them. A lot of great products there, mypillow.com/RSBN. And if you'd like to support us as well, based here in Alabama. We love the country. We love you guys. Obviously, have been around the country a lot with all the rallies. You can text RSBN to 801-801 or go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. All right, it is 1:41 Eastern Time. This is RSBN Live. Of course, Robert McNeely kicking off our coverage at 12 Eastern today. Looking at a picture of Detroit. I've never been to Detroit downtown. I'd love to check out a Red Wings game, a hockey game there, but I've only been to the airport. But if you've been to Detroit, I'm sure it's a city that is needing a turnaround, just like Chicago and just like a number of other cities out there. You got to win these cities one city at a time at this point. And at least the National Guard or ICE is in there trying to get things, steering the ship to the right direction. And we're going to talk about some more of that in just a minute. But in the meantime, speaking of Motor City, let's go to Detroit, Michigan, where President Trump is just finishing up this tour at the Ford plant in Detroit. This is just a quick video from Margot Martin, of course, White House staff. Let's take a look. So also on Margot's account there on X, a pretty cool video that she got, a vantage point of the American flag, the Ford logo, the president, and the workers there walking through the plant. I mean, that's Americana if you've ever saw it, right? I mean, Ford, obviously loved by many across this country. A lot of people have some jokes about Ford on the Chevy side and then vice versa. It's always been a thing. I get it. But at the end of the day, the F-150, the top selling truck, at least at last check, the number one selling vehicle in America. I'd love to get one. We'll see. Anyway, 1:43 Tuesday, January 13th. Let's do this. We're going to go back to that plant because as we're getting ready to upload this video of the president, it's about a minute 45-second video of the president speaking there to some of the reporters during that tour. As soon as I hear that we have the green light on that, no pun intended, with the Ford dealership, we'll send it right up there to Detroit for that. In the meantime, I want to talk about a couple things. The SAVE Act, passing the SAVE Act. I interviewed Carla Sands with the America First Policy Institute yesterday, and she brought this to my attention. And I remember hearing about the SAVE Act a lot, but there was a little confusion. Is it DOGE? Is it about elections? Well, it's about elections. It's the election security legislation that has passed the House, which would require proof of citizenship to register to vote. That sounds like a win. If you're on YouTube right now or Rumble or wherever you're watching right now, I mean, let's talk about this. Pass the SAVE Act. Now, I'll say that, but let's see if you guys agree, because the SAVE Act is simple. It's the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. So the election security legislation has passed the House, which would require proof of citizenship to register to vote, let alone getting voter ID and all the things, right? Securing our elections, paper ballots, voting same day. The SAVE Act, very important. So this is something that we have to reach out to our senators and our Congress people, because this is something that we, the people, want. We want our country to have secure elections. So the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or the SAVE Act, requires individuals to provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship in order to register to vote in federal elections. Specifically, the bill prohibits states from accepting and processing an application to register to vote in a federal election unless the applicant presents documentary proof of U.S. citizenship. This should be a slam dunk. Unfortunately, there are some in the Senate who have not passed this. And I believe there's a list of Republicans that are not on board with the SAVE Act. We've been talking about securing our elections. You know, this is a network that has been there since day one, even before the 2020 election. But this is a very important one. I promised that I would do more research on it after I spoke with Carla Sands with the America First Policy Institute. And it's something that needs to be passed. And it's something that we can speak about here in national conservative media, but also those of you out there on social media as well, and reaching out to various Republican senators and saying, hey, this SAVE Act needs to be passed, and everybody needs to start speaking about it. I believe, whether you're on the right side of history or on the other side or whatever side, at the end of the day, securing our elections is just all about free and fair elections. So Again, the SAVE Act, SAVE stands for Safeguard American Voter Eligibility. It already passed the House, and it would require proof of citizenship to register to vote. So when we see that the left defends illegal immigration out there, they're also defending illegal voting. It's a fact. It's common sense, right? So when the left's saying, oh, yeah, the illegal immigrants, let them stay here. No, well, hold on now. Any country across the earth, most of them have voter ID anyway, but also you can't just go into any country and walk around, and you have to have some sort of paperwork. So again, think about that. Next time you see leftist protesters or leftist government or leftist media, if they're defending illegal immigrants, they're also defending illegal voting. Why are they so passionate about it? Do they really have a heart that just is saying, oh, don't tear up the families? I'm not talking about that. I don't want families tore up either. But if all the family can go back to the country they're from, especially if they're here illegally, But it's really about also, wait, that's one of our voters. Think about it. The leftists are saying, well, we don't defend the illegal immigrants. No. Keep them here. That's one of our voters to illegally vote in elections. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because this is facts. The SAVE Act needs to be passed. It would require individuals to provide proof of U.S. citizenship in order to register to vote in federal elections. All right, it's 1:48 Tuesday, January 13th. Of course, we're getting ready to hear from President Trump in Detroit, Michigan at the Economic Club. Looking forward to hearing his speech. Of course, we were just showing some videos of his tour there in Detroit. And before we get to a couple statements while he was walking around that plant, let's go to a few of our great sponsors here on Right Side, All Family Pharmacy. And that pharmacy is changing how people access medications by removing many of the barriers found in traditional pharmacies. So instead of waiting for weeks for those appointments or dealing with insurance complications, customers can order online and have your request reviewed by a licensed physician. Then those medications will be shipped directly to your door. So they offer a wide selection, including antibiotics, antivirals, Tamiflu, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, blood pressure medications, methylene blue, NAD+. That list goes on. So the model is especially helpful for people who value convenience and timely access to the medications you may need. So if you want an easier way to get your medications, all you have to do is visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Use that RSBN 10 promo code. Save the money, but also work with an independent pharmacy on the right side of history, allfamilypharmacy.com, as it's 1:49 Tuesday, January 13th. All right, let's go to one more sponsor here, Monetary Gold. Of course, Wall Street veterans are out there sounding the alarm. Many now saying gold can climb to $7,000 per troy ounce, and that's even before President Trump, finishes his term. So it's not wild speculation. There are experienced investors and economists and portfolio managers tracking the indicators out there. What's even more revealing is the behavior of central banks. They're trimming their exposure to U.S. treasuries and increasing their gold reserves. So they recognize the pattern. They know that paper currencies eventually fail. So here's the thing. All you have to do is give them a call, 888-617-7994, or go to rsbnforthegold.com. And results can vary, and always consult with your financial and tax advisors before investing. But this is something where the amount of money that's in gold and silver right now is just skyrocketing. It just is. So if you get a chance, rsbnforthegold.com. Some great sponsors here as we're 10 minutes from the top of the hour. Let's go now to President Trump in Detroit. He was speaking with some of the people there while he was touring the Ford plant and checking out some F-150s. That'd be pretty cool to check it out, right? I don't know. I like that kind of stuff. But let's go up to President Trump right now in Michigan.
Hello, everybody. This is Bill Ford, and he's just expanded the plant and went to 24 hour shifts. And Jim Farley, everybody knows Jim is a legend in the industry, but they're just saying their business is better than ever. They're doing 24 hours, Jim, now, 60 round the clock, and they do expansions, and they're building more plants in the United States because of tariffs. And Jim said, and Bill very strongly confirmed, they've never seen anything like it. in all of the years that they've been in business, they've never seen what's happening now like it. So it's a great honor. But so this plant, you might talk about it. This plant goes 24 hours around the clock. Before it used to go 3 hours around the clock.
No, it will. So we're adding a third shift, and it's going to be running, as the president said, 24 hours, 6 days a week. And that just shows the demand there is for this product, which is the best-selling product, as you all know, in America. And it just gets hotter and hotter. So we have a great relationship with the president and his whole staff. They've been great to work with for us. He personally is incredibly responsive every time we need something or call. We very much appreciate it, and we couldn't be more excited. We're adding market share. We're growing as a company. We're adding jobs, not just here but elsewhere. Times are good for us.
And all of the U.S. automakers now are doing great, and before they were having a really hard time. You couldn't. The environmentalists would not have let.
All right, so some comments there from President Trump during that tour in Detroit at the Ford plant, of course, the F-150 plant specifically there. And good afternoon and welcome again into Right Side Broadcasting Network as we get ready to go to Detroit live to hear from the president. Also, we're hearing that there are a number of pre-programmed speakers. So if we get that feed, we'll definitely send you there for the pre-program. Regardless, though, we will be getting, of course, President Trump live in Detroit, speaking at the Detroit Economic Club. When we see that feed, we'll go there as soon as we see it. All right. So also, again, for those of you just joining us, as many are learning today, and President Trump posted about this as well, a conservative author, of course, Scott Adams, has passed away after a battle with cancer. And Scott's final statement, according to friends, family, and colleagues, quote, "I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior and look forward to spending an eternity with him," end quote. Scott Adams was 68 years old. President Trump posted that nice photo as well if you want to check out his Truth Social. That was a post within the hour. Speaking of the president, for those that have just joined us, the president spoke briefly with the press outside the White House prior to his Michigan departure. So we may be able to get to that video. It's about a 3-minute video, but we're seeing some activity in Detroit. So we're gonna stay here live until we see the president or see a pre-programmed speaker, and we'll send you there to Michigan. Of course, we also have thought about a number of things out there when it comes to the stories we're tracking. We know that false information spread by fake politicians and the fake news fuels false actions. And that's what we're seeing out there with the protesters, of course, the woke mind virus plaguing the United States of America. And it's terrible to see, but this is good to see, someone that is not woke. And if you get a chance, I got the book, The Woke Mind Viruses by author T.S. Dixon. Good book. Let's go to Detroit, Michigan right now.
An American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What a place. I've been here before. We spoke with you before. Who knew it was going to turn out this well, though, really? I told you we're going to do a lot of things. Nobody thought it was going to turn out like this. This has been crazy. But it's a true honor to be back at the Detroit Economic Club with the businessmen and women who are really the economic engine of America. That's what you are. You've become more of that since I've been in, a lot more. Factories and plants were going to close, and now they're going 24 hours. I just left Bill Ford. He's running his plant, 150 plant, 24 hours a day, round the clock. It wasn't running that way two years ago, I can tell you. But it's the complex that Ford Motor Company so cherishes. It was a pleasure to see that the crown jewel of Detroit auto industry, is what they call it, is still going after 100 years. Can you imagine, over 100 years? I especially want to thank the president of the Detroit Economic Club, Steve Gregorian. Where's Steve? Steve? Where's Steve? Hi, Steve. Nice looking man. Nice looking guy. And board chair Sandy Pierce. Thank you very much, Sandy. Thank you very much. And we have some very special people here. We have a man who's doing a fantastic job. I get angry at him every once in a while, but very, very seldom, because he's got what it takes. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Scott? Hi, Scott. Hi, Scott. What a good guy. He's got a good pulse, doesn't he? Good pulse of what's going on. Thank you, Scott. He's been great. Michigan House Speaker Matt Hall. Matt. Hi, Matt. We did good in Michigan, Matt. We won the whole thing in Michigan, didn't we, huh? 3 times we won. You know that, right? They didn't give us credit the second time, but we won the second time. But we made the last one, Matt, too big to rig, right? That's what you got. That's the only way you win races in many cases. I got to tell you, it's too bad. I think they should get voter ID. Wouldn't it be nice? The Democrats are totally against voter ID. Who's against voter ID? How can you even campaign? We are against voter ID. How do you not get voter ID? You know what it means, Matt, right? When you're against voter ID, you want to cheat. That's all. There's only one reason you want to cheat, and they do cheat. They're terrible. Michigan Senate Republican leader Eric Nesbitt. Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Look good, Eric. State Senator Jim Runstad. Jim, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Former Congressman Mike Rogers, who's running for the Senate, and he'll be a great senator. And he's going to be a great senator. He was a great congressman, and then he left. He went on to very big things. He did well, no matter where he was. And I think they took that away from you last time. I'll be honest with you, Mike. I really do. I don't like to get things going. I don't like to be controversial at all. But they rigged the election on you. Mine was too big to rig. You won. I'm telling you, you won. But you're going to do great this time. He's a great guy, actually. He's going to be an amazing senator. Thank you. Thank you for being here, too, Mike. Special envoy to Iraq, Mark Savaya. Mark. Hi, Mark. Thank you. Great job you've done. This guy, he negotiates better than anybody around. Thank you. You need it. With Iraq, you need it. You need to be a good negotiator, Mark. I also want to thank Michigan's great congressional delegation. They're amazing. That's been back in Washington due to a very important vote that's coming up. They had a choice. Sir, we want to be with you, but if we're not with you, we're going to lose. But we'll still be with you. I said, no, I'd rather have you win. Don't worry about it. So we're going to win the vote. Representatives Lisa McClain, Jack Bergman, John Molinar, Bill Heisinger, Tim Walberg, John James, and Tom Barrett. They're great people, every one of them. And as many of you remember, I came here at the height of the 2024 campaign to lay out my plan to bring jobs and factories and wealth racing back to the United States and coming back to the great state of Michigan. And just a few weeks later, the people of this state and the voters all across the country endorsed that vision in a landslide victory. We won everything. We won all 7 swing states. We won the Electoral College 312 to 226. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of. Oh, it's so nice to win the popular vote. I won the popular vote all 3 times too, but we're not going to get into that. But the first time they said I didn't win the popular vote, but I won the Electoral College. So they always said, while he didn't win, this is the way I got introduced every time. While he didn't win the popular vote, he won the Electoral College, you know. So this is the way I was introduced for 4 years. And guess what? We said, I'm going back, we're going to win and we won the popular vote by a lot. So they can't say that crap anymore. And the thing that was most impressive, we won 86% of all counties in America, 2,700 to 525. Think of that, 2,700 to 525. And that's why when you look at the maps on Republican, Democrat, with red being Republican, as most of you know by now, I think, every once in a while you see one where they have it reversed. I said, why we do that? Well, we think it looks better. I said, look, red is Republican. Let's not try and change the voters' minds on things. Just do it that way. And the map was virtually all red. That was about the counties. That was the 2,700 to 550, I think is the exact number. Most importantly, we won a historic mandate to make America great again. And this is what we're doing. We're making America great again like never before. And now, after less than 12 months in office, this is the easiest speech to make. I have great people, and all I'm doing is spewing off what the hell we've done. Even Venezuela wasn't too bad, was it, huh? But you have people, Democrats, they say, I don't know if we should have done Venezuela. I don't know. Anybody that says that hates our country, okay? That was as flawless an attack as there has ever been. And they asked us to help them. They have 50 million barrels of oil. They said, take it. It's $5 billion. And we did. We're working with the Venezuelan people and representatives, and it's amazing. But that was an amazing situation. But we did al-Baghdadi, flawless. We did Soleimani, flawless. We did the Iran nuclear attack where we wiped out their nuclear capacity, which would have been very bad. You wouldn't have peace in the Middle East, flawless. We did them all flawless. I want to keep it going that way, too. I like flawless. Think about Jimmy Carter, the great Jimmy Carter, with the helicopters crashing, the hostages all over the place. Remember that one? Think about Sleepy Joe Biden with Afghanistan. What a disaster. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country, in my opinion. Real dope. Now, after less than 12 months in office, I'm back in Michigan to report to you on the strongest and fastest economic turnaround in our country's history. It's really been historic. There's never been, we're not 12 months, we're through 11 months. We've got $18 trillion being invested in our country. The most of any country ever was 3. We're at 18. There's never been anything like this. You are so lucky I allow you into this room to even be with me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The fake news will say Donald Trump thinks he's hot stuff. Right now I'm feeling pretty good, though, I will say. Oh, you're so lucky to be here. Under our administration, growth is exploding, productivity is soaring, investment is booming, incomes are rising, inflation is defeated, America is respected again like never before, and other than that, we're not doing that well. Now, think of all those things I just said. Every single inflation down, growth at an all-time high, stock market every day, 48 days in a row, 48 days during the course of 11 months, we hit a new high on the stock market, all of them. 1 year ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. That was said to me by many leaders. By almost every metric, we have quickly gone from the worst numbers on record to the best and strongest numbers, the most dynamic numbers, and an economy that is far ahead of even my optimistic. I had a very optimistic schedule, I thought. I didn't think it was, but people said it was very optimistic. Turns out to be very pessimistic by compared to what we've done. But we'll go down as the greatest in history, greatest first year in history nobody's ever had, just based on the numbers, based only on the numbers, not based on me, based only on the numbers, because, you know, you get these guys like
The governor of California likes to say how well he's doing. California's doing horrendously, but he says how well. We base it on numbers. There's never been numbers like this. Through 4 long years before I took office, crooked Joe Biden and his allies in Congress inflicted the economic nightmare known as stagflation. How many times have you heard the word? We hit it with Joe. We hit everything. What a disaster. Meaning low growth and high inflation. How does that work? Not good. So you have lousy growth and high inflation. In fact, it's the lowest growth ever and the worst inflation in the history of our country. That is really tantamount to not having a good 4 years, right? In other words, Sleepy Joe and the people that ran the auto pen were a complete and total disaster for our nation. They were a disaster for our nation. Had they won the election less than 1 year ago, we would have been, as I've often said, Venezuela on steroids. Now I'm Venezuela's biggest fan. We're working with them, but they came down from a very high number to a disaster, a disaster. And we would have been Venezuela on steroids, and we're bringing Venezuela back, and we're going to be great for Venezuela, great for our country. We're taking in, as I said, millions and millions of barrels of oil, and now they're coming in initially on a daily basis, 50 million, and values of over $5 billion. That's in 1 day. Just think of it. The biggest ships in the world can take 1 million barrels. The biggest ships in the world take 1 million. We have 50 million barrels. We need 50 of the biggest ships in the world just to get it out. We're bringing it in to be refined. It's an incredible feeling. It's great. Winning is a good thing. We're going to work with Venezuela. We'll make that country very strong again. We'll get oil prices down even further. We have it down at about a 6-year low, 7-year low, but we're going to get it down further. Joe Biden gave us a colossal stagflation catastrophe, but my administration's rapidly and very decisively ended that. We have quickly achieved the exact opposite of stagflation, almost no inflation and super high growth. So we have the highest growth we've ever had. Think of that. The highest growth we've ever had, and we've only been there 11 months. Think of what we can do for the rest of it. But do we have wood around here? I want to knock on a little wood. They have one little, everything's plastic nowadays. It's very tough. Now we have the greatest growth, and we have, inflation way, way down. But we inherited terrible growth, and we inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country. The fake news would say 49 years. So when I say the history, they give me a lot of time, but I believe it's the history. But let's say 49 years. Would you say 49 years is okay, right? It's pretty bad. What do you think, Mr. Senator, Mr. Future Senator? I'd say 49. What sounds worse, 49 years or history? I think 49 years almost sounds worse. Maybe I'll just use it and I won't argue with these people. As of this morning, core inflation for the past 3 months has been just 1.6%. The numbers we just announced just before I came on stage. And GDP is smashing expectations with the fastest growth for this country in many years. The fourth quarter is projected at 5.4%, and that's despite the Democrat shutdown where we lost at least 1.5 points. The Democrat shutdown, we would have had close to 7. Think of that, close to 7. They were projecting to. The fakers were projecting to. And if we keep deregulating and adding more capacity, like I saw today at Ford, and if we don't raise interest rates every time good news is mentioned. In the old days, I'm probably old. I used to be up at these lecterns and I'd say, I'm younger than pretty much everybody in the room. Now I say I'm older than pretty much everybody in the room. I like it the other way better, actually. But you're too young. But in the old days, when you had good numbers, interest rates would go down. When you had good numbers, the market would go through the roof. That's the way we're going to make it again. That's the old-fashioned way. That's the right way. Today, if you announce great numbers, they raise interest rates to try and kill it. So you can never really have the kind of rally you should have. What happens and what we want, we're going to have a lot of great months, a lot of great quarters. I want the market to go up. You announce unbelievable numbers and the market goes down because they know you're going to do everything possible. In the Fed, we have a real stiff in the Fed, but that's for another day. But they raise rates. So everyone says, oh, they announced great numbers. It's great, great, great. and the market goes down because they immediately raise rates. No. When the market goes up, they should lower rates. You want to see 20% and 25%? You want to see what we can do? We've got to go back to an old standard. When there's good news, the market should go up, not go down. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's the way it used to be for most of the time. That's the way you make a country great. But our growth potential is unlimited and could be much higher if we went back to sanity. We're not doing it anymore. We're talking about the head of the Fed, and I want somebody that when the market is doing great, interest rates can go down because our country becomes stronger. See, you view it differently. Our country becomes stronger, and therefore interest rates should go down, not up. They kill every rally. If it's, no matter who, if it's beyond me as president, it's no matter who's president. You have a good quarter, and they want to kill it because you're so petrified of inflation. And growth and inflation don't necessarily go hand in hand. You can have growth and very low inflation. In fact, oftentimes growth is good for low inflation. So we're going to work on that, Scott, right? I think we're going to work on that very hard. I mean it so strongly. It's sickening. We announce good numbers and we see the stock market drops 300 points. I say, what the hell is going on? Do you agree with me? It should be just the opposite. All right, Scott agrees, so I'm very happy about this. That means if he didn't agree, I wouldn't do it. But we're already growing double, triple, and even quadruple the speed of almost every other major economy on Earth. We're the #1 economy on Earth, too. And the results are in, and the Trump economic boom is officially begun. It's really begun almost from the beginning. Almost begun, if you look at it, really from November 5th. You know, on another metric, just before the election, it was almost impossible to get people to join the military. We had the worst enlistment in the history of our country, the worst. You couldn't get people for the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, Space Force, the Coast Guard. You couldn't get people. And since right after the election, but especially since after January 20th when we took office, we have now the strongest enlistment we've ever had in the history of our country. We've never enlisted people so quickly, so easily. And we enlist by merit now. You know, we won a Supreme Court case that said you hire by merit. You go to college now by merit. Everything's by merit. Our country became great because of merit. And we have done some job. But think of it, a year and a half ago, we had the worst enlistment in history. And now we have the best enlistment. Things like that don't happen. You might go from the bad enlistment to okay, but you don't go from the worst in history to the best in history. But that's what we've done, every one of them. And that includes police and firefighters. It was very hard to get police. It was very hard to get firefighters, and now everybody wants those jobs. In 4 years of Biden, they secured less than $1 trillion of new investment in the United States. So 4 years, less than $1 trillion. In less than 1 year, I've secured commitments for over $18 trillion from all over the world, the most ever for any country. Think of that, though. They did, and I'll tell you what, had she won, it would be a disaster because you would have people leave. You would have not had 1 trillion. You would have had 5 trillion, 10 trillion leaving the country, and your welfare would have doubled. When you look at what's going on in Minnesota, is that a disgrace? Is that a disgrace? But we'll talk about that. Under Biden, we had the highest trade deficit ever recorded, losing more than $1 trillion every single year. How about that? It was killing Michigan, and everywhere else in our country was being absolutely destroyed. But in a matter of months, largely because of tariff income and the election result, we've slashed that gaping trade deficit by, in a short period of time, 62, it just came out, 62%. People are stunned. The fake news back there, look at those cameras rocking and rolling. No, the fake news back there is, they're very upset about it, actually, but they're stunned. They can't believe it. We cut our trade deficit in actually 10 months was when the number came out. We cut it by 62%. It's going to go better than that now. The stock market is now the highest in history since the election. We've set all of those records, and I think an all-time record that's so important to me because so many people have them is boosting 401ks and retirement accounts for millions and millions of Americans, people that are in the police departments, the fire departments, people that are construction workers. A policeman came up to me recently, a nice guy, guarding me. He's a perfect guy to guard me. He was a massive guy, big, strong guy. He said, "Sir, you made me look so good in front of my wife." My wife thought I was a horrible investor because every time I invested, we lost money. And we have a 401k, and I'm up like 85%. She thinks I'm Warren Buffett. She thinks I'm brilliant. She's now calling me brilliant. It makes my life much easier. I love my wife much more now. She calls me brilliant every time. I said, "Don't worry, you're going to do even better for the next 3 years." But one of the biggest reasons for this unbelievable success has been our historic use of tariffs. There was the tariff that made America strong and powerful in past generations, and then we got off it and we went to the income tax system. Great going, fellas. You know, we were the strongest in 1887, relatively speaking. That was around the McKinley time, and Teddy Roosevelt and some others, but we were really strong with tariffs. And I know what happened. Some of these countries got together and they say, "Hey, convince the United States that it's no good, the tariff system is unfair to us." And so some genius, I know who, I don't want to get into it, but some genius said, "Oh, let's go to an income tax system." So instead of foreign companies and countries paying everything, the people started paying. And then after that, you had a depression, but that was a long time. That was in like 1913, you had the tariff switched into income tax. And then and they like to blame tariffs. You ever notice they blame tariffs? No, they brought tariffs back in 1932. They brought them back to try and save the sucker. But it was in 1929, because a lot of people, you know, the anti-tariff people. Now, an anti-tariff person is a pro-Chinese person, like Koch. This guy's fought me in every election I've ever been in, and I've kicked his ass. He inherited a lot of money, and I don't know the gentleman. But he fights me, and then he goes out and says, "I made more money with Trump than I ever made in my life." And then he supports these other people that were total losers. Gives them a lot of money, but he made more money. Everybody makes money with me. I always made money for people. Now it's tariffs that are making money for Michigan, and the entire country is stronger and safer and richer than ever before outside of that period of time. Now, if they had what was called the Great Tariff Act of 1887 or something like that, and it was a great group of people like yourselves. They picked really smart people to sit on a committee. They had so much money, they didn't know what to do with it, and they wanted to have the money given away. You know, we built the Panama Canal out of tariffs. We did a lot of things. Panama Canal was the single biggest investment, relatively speaking, that this country's ever made. Would be the equivalent of trillions of dollars today. And Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1. It was also the most profitable thing ever built. In other words, like buildings or casinos or anything, the most profitable thing ever built was the Panama Canal. And brilliantly, Jimmy Carter thought the country of Panama should have it, even though we lost 36,000 people to the mosquito. You know that, right? To the mosquito and a certain snake, which was not a very nice reptile. This was a brutal reptile. You got bit, it was over. It was just like, bye-bye, everybody. We lost 36,000 people. Malaria, the mosquito, and the snake. And he gave it away for $1. Well, at least we got $1. That's better than most of those guys do. We got $1 for that. Most expensive thing ever built, most profitable thing ever built, too. Makes so much money. Every prediction the critics made about our tariff policy has failed to materialize. The evidence shows overwhelmingly that the tariffs are not paid by American consumers, that they're paid by foreign nations and middlemen. And Scott went over that with us before, and they're paid by middlemen. They raise the thing. Countries get involved. They pay them because otherwise they won't have companies. They won't be viable. And we're the big beneficiary. Once again, the so-called experts were 100% wrong, and Trump was right. People of Michigan were 100% right. You elected the right guy. Have you had the other person, everybody? We wouldn't even be having a meeting today, probably. There'd be no meeting. The economic club would be saying, like, "Man, we're doing bad. It's going to be awfully tough to get people to show up. This is going to be tough," the chairman. "This is going to not be a good day for us. We don't want to have, let's cancel the meeting immediately." The Trump tariffs have delivered us trillions of dollars of new investment, unprecedented new partnerships on minerals, rare earths, defense, and artificial intelligence, and historic levels of foreign military sales. You know, you have the Supreme Court now going to rule on whether or not we can use tariffs. Can you believe this? a case brought about by people that are China-centric, foreign-centric, but China-centric. I wouldn't want it if I was China either. You know, China's one of our biggest taxpayers right now. China, would you ever believe you'd hear that? And they've been great. My relationship with President Xi has been great. But we have a group that's foreign-centric, China-centric, suing, and we'll figure something out if we don't win, but we should win. I mean, we should win. So great for national security. I ended 8 wars. Think of that, 8 wars. And without trade and tariffs, you wouldn't have been able to end any of them. But they brought hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into the United States Treasury, helped curb inflation, and helped cut the federal budget deficit by a staggering 27%. And that's only for a short period of time. The number's much bigger than that when you add in the full year. And I've told people I got into a lot of trouble because of the fake news back there. I told people, I said, tariff is my favorite word. I said, my favorite word of every word is tariff. I've loved it for 40 years. I came here many years ago. Remember, they said I didn't come here. Then they found out I did. I got an award in Detroit, in Michigan, many years ago, and still have it. They said it never happened. It did happen. Turned out I didn't notice any apology. But all I did was talk about you're losing your car industry. This was long before I ran for politics. They said you're losing. I said, why are you allowing these foreign nations to take your car? You know, you lost 57% of your car industry. The good news is you're getting it back. But I said, why aren't you using tariffs? I've been very consistent, I will tell you that, for years and years. Even as a private businessman, for years I used to, because I got, for whatever reason, a lot of publicity always. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it happens. And I talk about the importance. But I said, recently, I said, tariff is my favorite word in the whole dictionary. There's no word. And I took a lot of heat. They said, what about your wife, your children? What about religion and God? What about Jesus? So I said, all right, it's my 5th favorite word. And since then, I've been fine. They hit me hard, these people, the fake news. They were killing me over tariff. He likes tariff more than his wife, more than religion. He likes tariff more than anything. What a disgrace. So I now call it number 5, and I'm in good shape. That was a rough day. It's my favorite word, and I got killed. Every word, you know, when you go up here, you take a big chance, especially me, because I go off teleprompter about 80% of the time. But isn't it nice to have a president that can go off teleprompter? When you think? Remember the speeches Joe would make? First of all, they'd last a matter of seconds, you know. Thank you very much. You ever notice Joe would always cough before a speech? State of the Union, he gets, Ladies and gentlemen. And then it would be like very short. Although the one time they had him spruced up pretty good, remember, he was high as a kite. He was floating, he was up there way up. That was a bad speech. But, hey, he got through it, you know, he got through it. If you call it getting through, this country was so, can you imagine allowing 25 million people into our country, many of them criminals, many of them murderers? What he did to this country, what they did, because it was the people surrounding that beautiful Resolute desk. But just as I promised you that I've imposed a 25% tariff on all foreign automobiles, I'm standing up for the American auto worker like no president has ever stood up before. You know, those tariffs are keeping the foreign auto workers. Now, if they want to come in and build the plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors, that's great. I love that. Let China come in, let Japan come in. They are. And they'll be building plants, but they're using our labor. U.S. auto factories are now seeing more than $70 billion of new investment. Think of that. They were leaving. They were all going. They were going in the opposite direction. Now they're pouring back. It's the greatest. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And much of that money is coming right here to the car-making capital of the world, Detroit. You lost, I mean, so many places. Since I took office, Ford has announced it will invest $5 billion across its Michigan and Kentucky plants, creating 4,000 new jobs. GM is moving production of the Chevy Blazer and Equinox from Mexico right back here to America, right? Is my favorite auto worker here by any chance? You know who I'm talking? What happens? Where's Brian? Brian, oh, I see. He made some cash. He's have to fly. Oh, he's been very disloyal to Detroit. We're going to have to. He is such a great guy, right? Man, that guy fought for me when it wasn't the popular thing to do. He fought for me from day one. Well, you tell him I said hello to him, all right? That guy, he got it. 4 years ago, he got it, right at the beginning. He understood it better than anybody, better than the great economists. They had no clue. And Stellantis is investing $13 billion to expand its U.S.-based manufacturing plant by more than 50%. Stellantis doing a good job. Never before has an administration achieved such sweeping and dramatic turnarounds as have taken place just in this very short period of time. I mean, you're talking about 11 months. 11 months and you have a different business. 11 months and you're booming. I just spoke to an AI guy, and that's booming too. You know, we're leading China in AI by a lot. I'm letting them build their own electric plants because people are saying, you know, the amount of electricity they need twice as much as electricity currently in the United States for every other business, home, factory. They need double. So I said, we can't do that. And then I had the idea. When they build these $50 billion plants, I'm going to let them build, and they're already building big electric plants to take care of their plant. And any excess electricity, they'll sell it back to our country. It's an unbelievable, and therefore we're going to build, I think if they really added, you know, you hear how much, and I have great respect for China, but you hear they're building a lot of electricity, but we are too. But we're having it built privately. They're going to own their own electric. They're becoming their own electricity producer. And when they heard this idea, they thought it was great, but they didn't take it seriously because they said it's too good to be true. But then they realized that I was serious. They were getting them 2- and 3-week approvals. They don't have to wait for 20 years before they get rejected. You know, in the old days, they had to wait for 20 years, and then they get rejected at the end of 20 years. Guys would give up their whole career trying to get one approval, and then they get rejected. In every aspect of our agenda, we're putting America first, and nothing will stand in our way. Nothing's going to stand in our way. Nothing. So one of our top priorities in this mission is promoting greater affordability. Now, that's a word used by the Democrats. They're the ones that cause the problem. The one thing, they stick together. They don't have some of the people that we have. I don't know. It's a genetic thing. It's something in the blood. We got some real losers. Mostly great. But I wouldn't use the name Romney because I'm in his sort of territory. So I would never use that name. But all right, I'll use it. They don't have a Mitt Romney that votes against everything. They don't have a Rand Paul that votes against everything. I got him elected twice. He was a stone-cold loser. I went to Kentucky where I won by a lot. I did a rally for him. Then I did another rally. He won. Then I went the second time. He won. Then he votes against all the time. It's just crazy. I don't get it. Then you have Lisa Murkowski and you have Susan Collins. Disasters. And you had a gentleman from Indiana that I don't believe it, Todd Young, he voted against. And you say, why are you voting against? They can't give you an answer. They're unable to give you an answer. It's like, why are they against the attack on Venezuela? They're against the attack after they found out it was the most successful attack, probably the most talented, most brilliant tactically attack that we've had maybe in 100 years. And they're against it. Why? It's one thing if the attack failed. I'd probably do that too. A change. I'd be in favor. Then if it failed, I'd say, I told him not to do it. That's what they do. But here we have one of the most successful attacks ever. And they find a way to be against it. It's pretty amazing. But it's a shame. And we have some others, but not many. We have a great party, but we have people, the Democrats, whether you like them or not, they stick together like glue. They have horrible policy. Thank God they have horrible policy. Because they're smart, they're evil, they're vicious, but they're bad policy. For instance, you could be a genius and try selling men playing in women's sport. You could be a genius, try selling transgender for everybody, open borders, let the world come in. Let the world's prison population come into the United States, including all of the murders, 11,888. That's what we're trying to get out of Chicago and Minnesota and these places. So they stick together, which I admire because I'm a very loyal person, but they have horrible policy. Can you imagine if they had good policy? They were on this morning talking all the reasons that men should be playing in women's sports. They had a football guy there, flag football. This guy was like 6'6". He weighed 290 pounds with zero body fat. And they had a few young women. They were the size of his leg. He wouldn't have had to run. He could have just walked. They couldn't have done a thing about it. 10 of them would have to jump on him that wouldn't have had any impact. I don't think he would have been like a fly. It's so ridiculous. It's so demeaning to women. It's so demeaning. Look at the weightlifting records. I mean, the record got beaten by 112 pounds, a record that stood for 18 years. 1 ounce they'd put on stood for 18 years. Guy comes along who was a poor lifter as a man. He was at the lower portion of the class. Comes along and broke the record by 112 pounds. Think of that. They fought for years to beat that record. How about the swimming records? I mean, you can go to sleep during the time the man comes in and the woman. You can go take a nap for a little while. How about the long-distance race that took place not so long ago? Long distance, these marathon deals. They had top men, top women. The man came in. The woman came in 5 hours and 14 minutes and 36 seconds behind the man. Think of it. You're waiting. The man comes in. Now you're waiting 5 hours. What do you do if you're the parents? You go home and sleep for a while. Who the hell wants that? It's so demeaning to women and who are great athletes. It's so demeaning to them. And it's right now in the Supreme Court. I can't believe it would even go to the Supreme Court. I mean, could you imagine 20 years ago talking about men playing in women's sports? They'd think you're crazy. Or transgender for everybody? If you said there will be no mutilation on children, that's one of my standard lines. We will not allow the mutilation of a child. Can you imagine having to say that 15 years ago? People would say, is that guy crazy? Of course we won't. But we're living in a different time. It's a crazy time we're living in. After real wages plummeted by $3,000 under Sleepy Joe Biden, real wages are up by $1,300 in less than 1 year under President Trump. For construction workers, wages are up $1,800. Don't forget, they were down $3,000. Factory workers over $2,000, and for many other workers, over $5,000. And I just gave the military, because we're doing so well, we're taking in so much money with the tariffs, I just gave them $1,776. You saw that, right? Did you see that? They had 75, and I said, if you had $1 more, $1,776. They said, that was a good idea. We could afford $1 more. We gave them $1,776. Meanwhile, grocery prices are starting to go rapidly down. Rent is down. Airfares are down. Hotel rates are down. Cell phone prices are down. And we're just getting started. But more importantly than going down, our growth is through the roof. It's way up. Among my first acts in office was to end the radical left war on oil and gas and stop the crusade to kill American energy, and frankly, to open up cars so that you don't have to have an electric car. I love electric cars. I think they're great. I like Elon a lot. I don't think he was too happy with my policy of opening it up, and I can understand that. But I've been saying it for 4 years. They wanted everybody to have an electric car in a very short period of time. There was no way to build the stations. There was no way to get it done. I want you to have gasoline-powered cars. I want you to have electric. I want you to have hybrids. I want you to have everything. Hydrogen, I don't know about. I'm hearing it's not testing so well. It's fine, except when there's an explosion, you're a goner. Now, have you heard that with hydrogen? I have one guy who's trying to sell hydrogen, and I say, yeah, but, sir, that only happens 1 in 100. Oh, great. When it happens, they find the body like 300 yards down the road. So I said, I'll pass on hydrogen. Maybe there's something I don't know about, but is anybody in the hydrogen car business? Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in 17 states and under $2 in many places. We have some states it's $1.95, $1.99, $1.97. As we speak, these are gas stations, and think of that. We have gas stations in the Detroit area where you can fill up for less than $2.30 a gallon, whereas 2 years ago it was $4.50, and in many places it was way over $5. Think of that, $2.30. You see it. That's like a massive tax cut, which we gave you under the great big beautiful bill, by the way. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. And with our extremely successful operation in Venezuela earlier this month, that number soon is going to go lower because we're going to have a lot more energy. We're going to have a lot more, as opposed to a country that's going to be totally shut down. No fuel, no gasoline. And it's, you know, they say it's got more than Saudi Arabia. Who knows? It's got a lot. And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers. Look, 1 death is too much. But I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. And I say make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over. And it's all very fragile. It would have happened to us, I'm telling you. If I didn't win this election, it would have happened to us. In the coming weeks, I will be laying out even more plans to help bring back affordability. And again, remember, that's a fake word by Democrats. Prices were too high. They caused the high price. They never want to talk about affordability. They always go, this is an election about affordability. I say, they caused it. But they're good at that stuff. They're good at that stuff. They're fake. And they're good at that stuff. It's an election about high prices that was caused by the Democrats and that I brought down a lot. And remember, when you see energy coming down like I brought it down, and gasoline coming down, that brings everything else down. It's so much bigger than any other factor. When gasoline gets to be $1.99 a gallon, everything comes down. The donuts come down, the truck that delivers the donuts, the stove that makes the donuts, the whole thing, it all comes down. And it's coming down much faster than anybody can even believe. And remember, though, I always say, because here normally when that goes down, the world comes down. That's the bad way of bringing it down. Our growth is through the roof. So I always want to say that whenever I say prices are coming down, but our growth is going way up. 2 beautiful events, the exact opposite of the Biden administration. As part of those efforts at Davos next week, I'm going to provide much more detail about our housing policies so that every American who wants to own a home will be able to afford one. We have some great things happening with housing, as you know. You saw the $200 billion buy-in on bonds and mortgages. This will include a ban on large institutional investors buying up single-family homes all over the country and making it impossible for people to buy a home. And I've also announced that the U.S. government is purchasing $200 billion of mortgage bonds to bring down mortgage rates, and it's had a huge impact. It's already started. And just last week, the average 30-year mortgage dropped below 6% for the first time in many years. It's coming down very rapidly, and that's not with the help of the Fed. If I had the help of the Fed, it would be easier. But that jerk will be gone soon. In addition, I proudly called for the credit card companies to cap interest rates at 10% for 1 year because they're getting 28 and 30% and 32%. And it's unfair. The rates are way too high. To provide further relief to hardworking Americans, we'll also be confronting one of the biggest factors in driving up prices, the monstrosity known as the Unaffordable Care Act. You know what that is, right? It's Obamacare. It's a great name, Unaffordable Care Act. Nope. Did anybody ever think of that one before? It's true. It's the Unaffordable Care Act. Obamacare was a gift to make health insurance companies rich at the expense of the American people. In particular, the so-called enhanced premium tax credits were a corrupt payoff to the insurers, whose stock prices went up more than 1,000% after Obamacare was signed. I want the same money I want it to go directly, very simple. I want the money, those big amounts of money paid for by the government, to go directly to the people so they can buy the health care that's right for them. They can negotiate their own deal, health care savings account. but they'll buy their own health care, and everybody loves it. That's why later this week, I'll announce our health care affordability framework that will reduce premiums for millions of lower drug prices, delivering price transparency and demand honesty and accountability from insurance companies all over the country, all over the world, actually. Healthcare costs will come down very fast with my most favored nation executive order. We're doing most favored nation drug prices. When we would have drug prices stay the same, everybody thought it was great. They're going to be coming down thousands of percents. We're standing up to special interests and slashing prescription drug prices by 300, 400, 500, and even 600% and more. I mean, think of that. On that alone, we should win the midterms in a landslide. I'm doing favored nations. The country that pays the lowest price in the world is the price that we're going to pay. And we got that because of tariffs, because I said to the countries they wouldn't approve it. The drug companies were tough, but they were fine. But they said the countries will never do it because you have a pill that sells for $10, you have to sell it for $20 or $30. So you'd have to double or triple the price of their health care there for prescription drugs. Ours would come down from $130 to $20. Theirs would go from $10 to $20, the world being a bigger place. And it was unbelievable, but the countries wouldn't do it. So I called the countries. I said, if you don't do it, then I'm going to put a tariff on you. And the tariff's going to be 20 times more than the cost that you're having to pay for fair health care. And every one of them said, sir, we agree with you 100%. We would be honored to do it. It was really rather amazing. We could never do it. So think of that. You have most favored drug prices. Your drug prices are going to go down like from $100 to $10. Nobody can believe it. And we can't get the fake news to write about it. It's the biggest thing to happen in medicine. It's the biggest thing to happen in healthcare. And I cannot get the New York Times, I cannot get anybody to write about it. When we got it done and we announced it, it was on a page way in the back of the New York Times. Same with others. They don't want to talk about it. You know why? Because it's so good. It's the biggest thing to happen. Over the past 12 months, almost every promise I made to you right here in 2024 has been kept. I've kept all my promises and much more. I mean, I've given you much more than I gave you promises, and I produced much more than I said I was going to produce. I gave you the largest tax cuts in American history, cutting taxes across the board in the great, big, beautiful bill. And as I told you, I mean, who would have gotten you no tax on tips, as I said before. No tax, I say it over and over again, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our seniors. Any senior should be voting for us because the Democrats won't do this. It doesn't work for them. And we also made interest on car loans fully tax deductible so that when you go out and buy a car, if you have a mortgage or you get a loan on a car, you're allowed to deduct interest for the first time ever. That's never happened before. But only for cars that are stamped with the beautiful words, made in the USA. In other words, we're only letting that take place if the car is made like in Detroit or in the USA. Our tax cuts also provided 100% bonus depreciation on all new equipment and capital investments, meaning that for any manufacturer looking to bring production back to America, you can write it all off, everything. Not in 38 years, not in 44 years, in 1 year. You write the whole thing off in 1 year. That's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest thing. That's the big job producer. And I've cut an unprecedented number of burdensome regulations. We're number one in the history of our country in cutting regulations. I promised to cut 10 old regulations for every one new regulation. So if we put on a regulation, the only way I'll allow it to happen is if the secretary, like Scott Bessent, cuts 10 old regulations. But instead, last year we actually cut 129 regulations for every one that we put in. Think of that. So nobody's ever cut regulations like I have. I terminated the insane electric vehicle mandate and ended the war on internal combustion engines. Once and for all, those engines were gone. And some people like them. And if they like them, great. And if they like electric, if they like any form of propulsion, any way you want to propel your car is okay, except for a couple of them, as I discussed. I permanently stopped Joe Biden's ridiculous CAFE standards. You know what the CAFE standards are? There's standards that make it impossible for you to build a car affordably. They make it impossible for a car to really work right. The CAFE standards sound so nice. The CAFE standards, it's environmental standards that are impossible to meet. And we're canceling the EPA's absurd tailpipe emission standard, one of the worst ever. And I revoked the California emissions waiver to stop San Francisco communists from regulating automobiles all over our nation, all over our world. Boy, I have done so much for the car industry. It's crazy. Nobody thought it was possible to do this. And that's why your industry, and not everybody's in the car industry. How many people are in the car industry in this room, in one way or another? That's a lot, relatively. That's not bad. Another urgent priority for bringing down the cost of living is to stop the colossal fraud that is bleeding American taxpayers absolutely dry. The fraud being committed by the Somali population in Minnesota. Have you heard of them? They're lovely people. Is monumental. And California, Illinois, New York, and others are just as bad. Our country has been losing over $500 billion to fraud every single year, but those days are over. We have the best group you've ever seen assembled going after fraud. In Minnesota, we're cracking down on the Somali scams, ending the brazen and shameless theft of taxpayer dollars. Well, it's going on in Maine, too, with Somalis. You know, and they don't take our ships anymore. You know why? We hit them with the same missile that we used to hit the drug dealers coming in with the boats. You know, we have drugs coming in by sea down 97%. You've seen that? 97%. And we're really trying hard to find out who the hell is the other 3%. But we have them down 97%. And we're going to start hitting them by land, too. The hard part is done. By sea, nobody's coming. It hasn't been great for the fishing industry, however. Those that have a fishing boat, they're having a hard time getting customers. But you can't have everything. Nobody wants to go in boats. Nobody wants to go like 25 miles an hour. When you see a boat with 5 engines on the back of it going 65 miles an hour, and it's loaded up with hundreds of bags that you see cellophane with white, typically, it's not fishing. How about the couple of submarines we took down? We took out 2 submarines, and the Democrats say they were fishing. No, they were submarines. They build a very fast, it's a drug-carrying submarine. They have a lot of money. And we took them out, and the Democrats claimed that they were fishing. We shouldn't ruin people's beautiful fishing journey. It's unbelievable what we have to go through. It's really a shame, actually. We froze it all, children's payments to those states that we're talking about, and we will now require proof of attendance in order to receive federal funding for child care or any of that. How about all these child care places in Minnesota where there is no children? They go there, they get paid millions and millions of dollars. The biggest operation in all of Minnesota had no children. And we pay millions of dollars. They're scammers. They're scammers. They always will be. And we're getting them out, and we're not going to pay them. We're not going to pay Minnesota. Right, Scott? We're not paying Minnesota any more money for any of that crap. It's a big scam. It's a giant scam run by an incompetent, crooked governor. He's an incompetent, crooked guy. And also, we're freezing any and all welfare payments going to illegal immigrants that will start effective immediately. So when illegals come into California, Gavin Newsom, they come into California, and they send us bills for people coming in. We're not paying it. So we're working on that very strongly. Just don't pay it. As Nancy Reagan would say, just say no. Remember Nancy Reagan? Just say no to drugs. It's a little more difficult than that, I guess, right? But just say no. Additionally, from this moment forward, if you're on public assistance like almost all Somalis are, did you see where 94% of them are on public assistance? You can't wire money out of the country back to your bank account from where you came. But more importantly, we probably aren't even going to give them the money anymore, the money going to them, because of the tremendous abuse and probably illegality being perpetrated on our country. We're not going to give them the money. We're not giving them the money. It's massive numbers of people are scamming our country. You know, they came from a place with nothing, and they come here and they drive around in Mercedes-Benz. You know, the Mercedes-Benz dealers do well in that area of Minnesota. Can you believe it? They have nothing. They get welfare payments, and they have Mercedes-Benzes. It angers me so much, but we're going to straighten out our country. This was done under Biden and Obama, very much under Obama. It all started under Obama. And we just can't. We've got a great country. We're not going to screw it up. But this was one of the great scams ever. They have the same thing, Somali in Maine. Who would think? I never saw that happening. But in Maine, it's really crooked as hell, too. But it's not just Somali. It is them, but it's not just. There are many other places, many other people. The whole country, if we stop this fraud, this massive fraud, we're going to have a balanced budget. That's how much money you're talking. We'll have a balanced budget without all the growth I'm talking about. And then you add the growth, we got one hell of a country. We're giving 90-day notices to places like California, Scott. Right away, we're going to send out that notice. Who would bill the federal government as people poured into the state to send those people back because no country can afford to do it? No country can afford to take in millions of people, pay for their education, their health care, their hospitals. You just can't do it. And we all have a heart. You can't do it. But many of those people are murderers. They're people released from jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums. They're people that are drug dealers. They're addicts. Additionally, starting February 1st, we're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities because they do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens, and it breeds fraud and crime and all of the other problems that come. So we're not making any payment to anybody that supports sanctuary cities. We have also suspended nearly 8,000 SBA loans, Small Business Association loans, to suspected scammers in Minnesota, of which there are many. It's a great state. It was a great state. Now it's getting destroyed by that stupid governor. What a stupid guy he is. But he's a crook. I mean, he's an incompetent guy, but he's a crook. He allowed this to go. You can't have corruption on a scale that nobody's ever seen before, and you're sitting as a governor and you don't know what's going on. It's impossible, even though he's a stupid guy. We're investigating large-scale visa fraud, and the Department of Justice has already charged nearly 100 people in criminal conspiracies in Minnesota. They're all over the place. Last week, we announced that I'm creating a brand-new division at the Department of Justice, a legal strike force led by a really tough, smart new Attorney General for fraud. He's a fantastic young guy. He's so impassioned to do this properly. We intend to imprison any fraudster, politician, or public official involved in these sick plots to loot and pillage our country. Think of that Ilan Omar. She lives in Somalia. They don't have a government. They don't have a military. They don't have police. They don't have anything. All they have is murder and robbing ships, bringing in ships, pirates. That's stopped. Same missile, ping. That's the end of them. It's amazing how that can stop corruption. Those missiles, they never miss, you know. The same one, exactly the same one. But think of it. She comes from a country with nothing, and she comes here and she tells us about our Constitution. I have a constitutional right to rip off the country. I guess she's a total scam artist. Anybody knows it. How do you let her get away with it? AOC +3. She was one of the three. They're all scammers. They're so bad for our country. They're so bad for our country. Our ICE operation in Minnesota, for example, is finding hundreds of killers, violent predators, and child rapists, some of the worst criminal offenders anywhere in the world, murderers all over the place. All we want to do is get them out. Did you see the pictures that we put up? Hundreds of them. Murderers wanted for murder, wanted for the worst drug selling. One of them is one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. And vicious, sells bad drugs too. Bad drugs, like if you take a tiny little morsel, your child is dead. And we're getting them. But it's hard to get them because they make it so impossible for you. And you wonder why. Why would they do that? You know, do they want to live with murderers? Do they want to live with these people that are emptied out from prisons? They have a lot of people. One of the reasons I was so angry with Venezuela, they emptied their prisons almost entirely into the United States of America. Tren de Aragua was the gang, one of the worst, probably the most violent gang there is anywhere in the world, they say. We're getting them out. We've got a lot of them out already, but we're getting them out. We're also going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of defrauding our citizens. We're going to get them the hell out of here fast. And if you come to America to rob Americans, we're throwing you in jail and we're sending you back to the place from where you came. We're throwing you right in jail. And they know it, too. And one of the reasons they're doing these fake riots, I mean, they're just terrible. I mean, you see it's so fake. Shame, shame, shame. You see the woman, that's all practice. They go practice. They go to areas, they take hotel rooms, and they all practice together. It's a whole scam. We're finding out who's funding all this stuff, too. We pretty much know. But in conclusion, as we liberate our country from this cultural scourge and the plague of corruption and fraud, we'll rediscover the natural energy and native spirit that truly makes America great again, like we're doing with Detroit and Michigan. If we get rid of fraud and do our job properly on the trillions that are being extorted out of our country from corrupt and incompetent governors like Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, and Tim Walz, we will very soon have a balanced budget, and that's the kind of money that we're talking about. We're talking about massive amounts of money. Our country wasn't built by people who tried to lie and cheat and scam their way to success. It was built by legends like Henry Ford, Henry Dow, Thomas Edison, the Kellogg brothers, Alfred P. Sloan, the founder of General Motors, men who lifted up American workers and strengthened our nation beyond even belief. And we're doing the same exact thing right now. I think we're doing it even better. This is the fierce spirit of patriotic free enterprise that we're now unleashing once again. We are unleashing it like maybe never before. Together we have turned the page forever on the failed left-wing model that makes our America poor, desolate, and makes people feel sorry for us. That's what we had. We had a country where our leader was laughed at and our country was scorned. We had a country that was laughed at. They laughed at us. 2 years ago, they laughed at us. They thought we were fools. They thought we were stupid people. Now we're seeing that they're not the smart ones. We are. But we have a great America, and we're going to enrich it. And foreign nations, foreign migrants, criminal fraudsters, and corrupt politicians are not going to play a role anymore. They're going to be in jail. Under the Trump administration, we're reclaiming America's dignity, rebuilding America's wealth, and we're putting the productive, hardworking American citizen at the center of every single thing that we do. They were the ones that built America, and they will build it up again, and that's what they're doing at levels nobody thought was possible. So today, after less than 1 year, our border is secure. Remember, they talked about the border, how bad? In 3 weeks, I didn't go to Congress. I said, secure our border. And they did. Remember Biden, he said, I have to get approval from Congress. Had nothing to do with Congress, had to do with respect. Our spirit is restored. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our economy is booming like I think you'll see soon, like never before. Our military is strong and unprecedented. I rebuilt our military in my first term. Our workers are thriving, and our auto industry is returning to the country where we all began and where it all began, and frankly, a country that we love. The United States is winning again, and we're rapidly making America and the great state of Michigan greater and more prosperous than ever before. I want to again thank the Detroit Economic Club. You do a fantastic job, so respected. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, President Trump just wrapping up that speech, speaking for about an hour and change there in Detroit, of course, at the Detroit Economic Club. The president speaking on a lot of topics, including voter identification. We were talking about that earlier, of course, voter ID and proof of citizenship. Of course, our elections, when it comes to the midterms, November 3rd of this year. So really important to continue to talk about that and also pass the SAVE Act. We also discussed that earlier. If you'd like to replay or scrub back a bit. This is RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for watching this event. Of course, President Trump touring that Ford factory in Detroit, speaking there at the Economic Club, and heading back to Washington, D.C. We'll have more coverage from the president and, of course, the White House tomorrow here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Have a great day.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.